Dear participants, ladies and gentlemen, good morning from our side. It's a great pleasure to welcome you all to this virtual launch of the Energy Transition Assessment Report for Georgia. My name is Varvara Aleksic. I'm Associate Professional for Southeast Europe at IRENA, and it is my pleasure and I'm very grateful for the opportunity to moderate this important meeting on behalf of IRENA. Dear colleagues, before we proceed with our agenda, allow me to give you some logistical information regarding today's meeting. As you are aware, we are conducting this meeting virtually. In case you encounter any technical issues, please write your issue in the chat box and my colleagues from the organizing team will kindly help you. Also, in case I encounter any technical issue, my colleague Petya would kindly take over the moderation of the webinar. Please note the meeting is fully in English. For all the panelists, we would request you to start your video while making an intervention and during the panel. However, for all participants, please ensure you're muted when not speaking to avoid any background noise. Also, please feel free to use the chat feature to introduce yourself, to talk to other attendees, and in case you have questions, please kindly use the chat box and questions would be addressed during the Q&A. Let me now introduce briefly our agenda for today. We will shortly start with welcoming remarks from our distinguished keynote speakers, Mr. Francesco La Camera, DG of IRENA, and Ms. Margalita Arabidze, Head of Energy Efficiency and Renewable Energy Policy and Sustainable Development Department at the Ministry of Economy and Sustainable Development of Georgia. Their interventions will be followed by an IRENA presentation on the key findings of the ETA Georgia report. After that, we will have two panel discussions where we will have the opportunity to build on the report's recommendations and also discuss the current and future developments in Georgia renewable sector. So we will conclude the virtual meeting with concluding remarks from IRENA and our counterparts in the Ministry of Economy and Sustainable Development of Georgia. So without further delay, to begin with today's program, it's my pleasure to start the Director-General of IRENA, Mr. Francesco La Camera, video. Unfortunately, due to commitments undertaken in advance, DG would welcome us in a video. I will now take a second to share the video with all of us.
Dear Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to welcome you all to the launch of the Energy Transition Assessment Report for Georgia. First, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank all those who contributed to the development of this report. In particular, we appreciate the Ministry of Economy and Sustainable Development of Georgia and its leadership for the close cooperation, dedication, and support. A special thank goes to all interested stakeholders from the government, international development institutions, civil society, private sector, and academia for their valuable collaboration. The development of this report has been a country-led iterative process, where IRENA provided the technical expertise, highlight regional and global insights, and facilitated consultation among different national stakeholders. A great strength of the methodology is the fact that all recommended action in the report were discussed and agreed with valuable input from key stakeholders that are active on the ground. The launch of this report comes at the right time as countries seek to enhance energy security. Deploying renewables is not only the most cost-effective way to meet climate goals, but also the best solution for strengthening energy security. It is extremely relevant, particularly for this region. The current geopolitical crisis has further amplified the need to develop and use local renewable energy resources to avoid disruptions in the energy market and strengthen energy security. With its abundant forest and water resources, domestic energy production in Georgia relies on hydropower and biomass. However, this only covers less than a quarter of the total primary energy supply. With its declining share over the past decade and the weather and climate risk of hydropower production, it contributes to the increasing reliance on energy imports. This is an opportune moment for Georgia, as well as many countries in the region, to take strong, decisive steps toward the energy transition. We welcome the government's ambitious renewables target of 27.54% by 2030 in the recently adopted National Energy and Climate Plan. The ETA report highlights the challenges and opportunities. It recommends short to medium-term action in several key areas. These include effective governance, integration of renewable power, decarbonization of end-use sectors, financing the energy transition, local value creation and capacity building, consumer empowerment, and a just transition. By acting in these areas, Georgia can meet its climate and energy objective by 2030. The report also outlines specific action to align Georgia's climate ambition with certain national strategic documents as the NDC and NECP. Some of these actions can immediately support the drafting of Georgia's NDC 3.0. Moreover, in parallel with the energy transition assessment process, we concluded a zoning assessment to map investment opportunities within the countries for the utility-scale solar PV or wind projects. So, dear ladies and gentlemen, before I close, let me reiterate IRENA's readiness to continue working with its global membership, including Georgia, to develop a more secure, sustainable, and climate-resilient energy system. I sincerely hope this report and its recommendations will facilitate Georgia's successful path to this. We also stand ready to offer further tailored support. Thank you for your attention, and I wish you fruitful discussions ahead.
We would like to thank to our Director General, Mr. Francesco La Camera, again for his keynote video. And now it's my pleasure to give the floor to Ms. Margalita Arabice. She's Head of Energy Efficiency and Renewable Energy Policy and Sustainable Development Department in the Ministry of Economy and Sustainable Development of Georgia. Margalita, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara, and very good morning, and ladies and gentlemen, and dear colleagues. Good morning, everyone. It's my pleasure to share in Georgia's vision and the vision of the progress towards a cleaner, more sustainable energy future, as we continue and to align in our national policies with the global and climate commitments, and in particular with the national determined contributions under the Paris Agreement. We are ensuring there's a greener and more resilient and future for Georgia. Georgia is strategically in place to succeed in the transition. We are privileged to have the huge renewable energy sources from rich and hydropower potential to promising and wind, solar, biomass, and geothermal reserves. These energy resources offer us the tools, and we need them to reduce our dependency on the fossil fuel imports, enhance our energy security, and promote economic and the growth. But of course, realizing the potential is not an easy task. It requires to coordinated and inclusive and the approach that brings together government institutions, private sectors, academia, international partners, and local and communities. Climate action is at the core of our energy strategy. We are not simply and traditional to renewable energy for economic or energy secure and resource. We are doing and this so and because it's our commitments to mitigate and climate change and promote and sustainable development, and must ensure that our transition is fair, inclusive and beneficial across and the whole and the society. As we move forward, and this energy transition assessment for Georgia provides us with a comprehensive understanding of how to integrate and the climate action into our and the energy sector development. It outlines the necessary steps and to strengthen and governance frameworks, enhance and grid and flexibility, and unlocks the financial mechanisms that will be important to driving this transformation. It's our collective responsibility and to create and the favorable environmental for investments in renewable energy infrastructure, and to ensure that every Georgian citizens and has access to affordable, reliable, sustainable, and clean energy. We are committed and to creating the right and conditions for long-term sustainable investments in renewable energy. Our policy are designed and to promote an innovation, reduce barriers to entry, and provide incentives and for those who are willing to help us and build and cleaner and more secure energy in future. In closing, I would like to extend my deepest gratitude to the International Renewable Energy Agency for the active collaboration and throughout this process. Your dedication, insights, and support have been invaluable, and we are truly grateful for productive partnership in advancing this important work. Thank you very much, and we are looking forward and continuing this successful collaboration, and we more forward with our energy and transitions and goals. I will stop here and over to you and Varvara. Thank you.
Thank you, Margarita. Thank you for your opening address and also for setting the nice context for our discussion we will have throughout the whole day. We very much appreciate your cooperation. And now, dear colleagues, let me move to the next item on our agenda. It will be the scene-setting presentation to give an overview of IRENA analysis and also key findings and recommendations of the ETA Georgia process. For that, I'm pleased to welcome Mr. Gurbus Gonu, Director of Country Engagement and Partnerships at IRENA. I will start the presentation now, and Gurbus, you kindly have the floor.
Thank you very much, Varvara. Distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, very good morning to everyone and greetings from Abu Dhabi. It's really my great pleasure to join you at this virtual launch event for the Energy Transition Assessment for Georgia, and I'm pleased to share with you some insights into the report, including key recommendations stemming from this multi-stakeholder consultation process. This assessment is important not only to offer a clean, resilient, and affordable pathway for the future of energy sector and the country's broader socioeconomic development, but also to follow on its international decarbonization and climate change commitments. And in this regard, it is commendable to see that Georgia has already adopted a National Energy and Climate Plan, NECP, with a renewables target set at 27.4% by 2030. We hope that this assessment would provide a building block in aligning the NDCs with the ambitious NECP targets that demonstrates Georgia's commitment and rising ambition with the climate fight. Let me start with the rationale for this assessment, because there are really a number of strong drivers for Georgia. especially starting with the domestic energy production in Georgia, which is declining over the past decade, leading to heavy reliance on energy imports, which accounted for 89% of the total energy supply in 2023, undermining the country's energy security. Georgia's power sector is threatened by climate change owing to seasonal variations in hydropower generation, which result in increased reliance on electricity imports and thermal power especially during the winter months. With a view to strengthening its energy security through resource diversification, Georgia has viable options to better utilize its locally available abundant renewable energy resources, especially wind and solar. And the cost is no longer a setback, as the cost of renewable electricity has significantly declined over the past decade, making it more competitive to fossil fuel options. Secondly, developing a renewable-based domestic energy sector will help meet increasing energy demand, enhance economic competitiveness, and comply with carbon pricing mechanisms which are coming out. And I think the most relevant one is the EU's Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism, CBAM, for Georgia. And Georgia can reduce its reliance on costly energy imports, lower national expenditures, and redirect funds towards other development priorities. Energy poverty in Georgia is a concern, with large part of population still lacking access to affordable, reliable, and modern energy services. Adoption of energy efficiency measures and facilitating access to renewable energy technologies in affordable manner would enable a just and fair energy transition, leaving no one behind. A renewable-based energy transition will also drive economic activities, create local value and job opportunities, while leveraging manufacturing and green industrialization, and in overall stimulating the economic growth. Our work in Georgia had several streams. Upon request from Ministry of Economy and Sustainable Development, we went a step further, and besides the regular energy transition assessment, which provides a comprehensive assessment of the energy transition pathway for Georgia, we also conducted two additional analyses. The first one is the alignment of Georgia's contribution with the National Energy and Climate Plan, which also takes into account the mid-century vision of the long-term low-emission development strategies. This is intended as a direct input into the new NDC 3.0, informing the process at the drafting stage. In the next session, my colleague Ines will provide more details on the outcomes of this work, and we are particularly glad to have the representative of the Ministry of Environmental Protection and Agriculture with us today to offer insights on the ongoing NDC updating process. Before we move deeper into the energy transition assessment outcomes, let me also highlight some insights on our zoning assessment, which is the third leg of our work in Georgia. Upon the Minister's request, we are in the process of identifying favorable zones for the development of solar PV and onshore wind projects, along with their associated techno-economic assessments. The study revealed a potential for developing approximately 87 gigawatts of solar PV and 5.4 gigawatts of onshore wind projects. It is recommended to incorporate these zones into geospatial power planning tools for integration into the wider power system planning models, informing generation capacity expansions, as well as network development plans. The report is in the final stage of development, with the planned publication in the coming months, most probably in June. Let me turn now to the energy transition assessment, which is a country-initiated and country-led process facilitated by IRENA with our technical input. And in overall, it aims to comprehensively evaluate the conditions for accelerated renewable energy deployment, in this case in Georgia. During this process, we aim to identify those challenges that hinder the deployment of renewable energy and come up with a series of recommendations for short to medium term action to guide decision makers and other relevant actors in the sector in addressing these challenges and unblocking investments. Throughout the process, we have closely worked with the Ministry of Economy and Sustainable Development, so please allow me to express our gratitude to the colleagues in the ministry for their dedicated efforts towards the success of this process, along with all key stakeholders in the country. I think there's quite a broad range of stakeholders we closely work with. Ministry of Environmental Protection of Agriculture, power utilities, other state institutions active in the energy field, municipalities, development partners, financial community, private sector, and also non-governmental organizations. This enabled an inclusive consultative process promoting consensus, with validations taking place at different stages of the process with extensive stakeholder outreach, including 2 stakeholder workshops that we have organized, which gathered more than 60 participants in each case. Now moving to the report, which identified 6 thematic areas, from governance to capacity building and consumer empowerment, from system integration of renewables to end-use decarbonization, and from financing to local value creation. It's a quite broad coverage and wide spectrum of key issues have been captured in the report. 14 recommended actions with 84 precise implementation steps have spread across the 6 priority areas that are expected to be taken in the short to medium term to accelerate the deployment of renewable energy and facilitate Georgia's energy transition. Now let me take you quickly through these recommended actions. Reflecting the complex nature of the energy transition landscape, policymakers strive to secure a balanced approach between fast-changing technologies, evolving costs, and shifting market conditions, all while trying to align climate and energy goals. And in Georgia, this complexity is further heightened with the need to coordinate across multiple planning documents like NECP, NDC, and long-term strategies, which are often developed separately and sometimes lack consistency. Therefore, the first area investigates the need for the coordinated governance in energy and climate. Having a dedicated planning team with sufficient technical and human resources, in addition to establishing an implementing body for energy transition, would help streamline complex processes and ensure consistency in decision-making and implementation of various renewable energy and energy efficiency measures. It would also support informed policymaking and help establish stable regulatory frameworks that build investor confidence. Consistency is needed at all levels, including at the level of local administrations, who are very well placed to tailor energy solutions to local needs. Municipalities could be empowered with the required mandates and resources to support clean energy transition. Through innovative funding mechanisms and public awareness campaigns, municipalities could gain an active role in the energy transition. The second thematic area is infrastructure, where the report calls for measures to improve grid flexibility that can help manage intraday intermittencies of variable renewable power production. Special attention is given to identification of renewable energy zones that should be incorporated into power system planning and informing generation capacity expansions and network development plans. Based on the successful outcomes of the 2 previous auctions, we call for continuation of this practice to facilitate market price discovery for large-scale investments and better network planning. The third action area is end-use decarbonization, starting with the development of a comprehensive strategy for decarbonization of the heating and cooling in buildings and industrial sector. While the transport sector is heavily reliant on fossil fuels, tailored financial schemes could be introduced to affordability of e-mobility solutions while integrating charging networks into municipal planning instruments. Biofuel blending would require further policy and infrastructure development to address barriers such as feedstock availability. Then the financing challenge, as access to finance is cited as a major obstacle to business development in Georgia. Establishing a revolving fund for renewable energy and energy efficiency could be considered, along with developing de-risking instruments for renewable energy projects. Developing local value chains is of critical importance. Facilitating research and innovation can indicate optimal solutions tailored to the country's context and industry needs that take advantage of local resources and value chains to bring about maximum socioeconomic benefits and attract needed investments for the energy transition. This would equally require a skilled workforce, which is today another major obstacle to business development in the country. Attention needs to be given to the development of targeted certified retraining and vocational programs in renewable energy. And the final point is the role of communities in the energy transition process that needs to be fully recognized in the national legal framework, prioritizing environmental, social, and economic benefits for the broader community, while also including energy poor and vulnerable households. In this regard, definition of energy poverty, along with strategizing pathways to its elevation, is imperative. Energy transition will only be considered successful if it is implemented in a just and equitable way, leaving no one behind. And for further details on the recommendations, I invite you to visit IRENA website to skim through the report and download the report and go into more details. I think there are much broader, much specific details included in the report, which might attract your interest. So what's next? First of all, as a time-bound action, I hope this report will offer a substantive input into the ongoing NDC 3.0 drafting process in alignment with the recently adopted NECP. We are ready to provide further support in this regard where needed within the limited time left prior to COP30. As for the implementation of the recommended actions, we absolutely need a coordinated approach. While IRENA will be pleased to accompany Georgia during this process, and the recommendations will greatly benefit from efforts of all local and international stakeholders active in the energy sector in Georgia. We rely on the ministry to secure such coordination among the partners where we can come in to support you in different areas. We are very much looking forward to more detailed deliberations also today during the panel discussions on how these recommendations can be translated into concrete actions. So before closing, let me express once again our gratitude to the ministry and all stakeholders that supported the ETA process, and my sincere wish for our continued collaboration in securing a sustainable energy future for Georgia. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gurbuz, for this very comprehensive presentation and also for highlighting some of the key insights from IRENA's analysis of Georgian energy transition process. I'm sure many of these messages would resonate during the panel discussion that will follow. And now it's time to invite my colleague Petya Icheva. Petya is a program officer for Southeast Europe in IRENA, and she will be the moderator of the first panel discussion, and she will kindly introduce our panelists. Petya, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Varvara. I would like to ask our distinguished panelists to switch on their cameras. I will start introducing them in alphabetical order. So first, we have around 1 hour for our discussion, and I just want to inform also the audience that we will allocate some time for Q&A session. So please feel free to raise your feedback and questions in our chat box, preferably, so we can address them after our discussion. I will start with Mr. George Abulashvili, who is Director and Founding Partner for Energy Efficiency Center, Georgia. George also works very closely with the Convents of Mayors, and he helped us a lot with the definition of the recommendations related to the municipality level. We have with us also Mr. Florian Kitt, who is Senior Energy Specialist in the World Bank. Florian, it's a pleasure to have you with us. We have also Ms. Maya Melikidze, who is Executive Director, Georgia's Renewable Energy Development Association. The next panelist is Ms. Margalita Rabidze, Head of Energy Efficiency and Renewable Energy Policy and Sustainable Development Department at Ministry of Economy and Sustainable Development of Georgia. Once again, Margalita, many thanks to you and all colleagues for your active engagement in this process and very responsive cooperation with IRENA. We have also with us Mr. Mohamed Shahrur, who is Manager of Business Development at one of the pioneer companies for clean energy based in Abu Dhabi, Masdar. Thank you, Mohamed, for being with us. Last but not the least, we have Ms. Salome Janelidze, who is senior energy expert at Energy Community Secretariat based in Tbilisi. Thank you, Salome, also for being with us. So, as I already said, we are very pleased to have you all with us. And due to the time constraints, I would ask you to limit your interventions and responses to the questions up to 2 to 3 minutes, so we can cover more topics in our discussion. And once again, for the audience, please raise your questions in the chat box. We will be happy to reflect your comments. With this, I think it is the time to move to our first set of questions. And we already heard from Gurbus and also from DG this a large number of recommendations in different areas and broad engagement with the stakeholders. And also Gurbus mentioned that the process doesn't stop here, but we have this follow-up ETA process where we try to help the countries to implement the recommendations in short to medium term. And in this respect, it will be interesting to hear from our panelists what they consider as urgent measures and how they assess the recommendations. So I'll start with Margalita. It was already mentioned several times that you already adopted or set up your target for 27.4% renewables in the National Energy and Climate Plan by 2030. And definitely it's a very short period in terms of implementation. So it will require a lot of urgent measures. So could you please tell us what is the progress in the decarbonization of the energy sector, in electricity sector in Georgia, and what are the key priorities for the ministry in the incoming period, and which of our recommendations you see as urgent for you?
Thank you, Petia. Thank you so much. And first of all, thank you for excellent cooperation. As I mentioned today, and this project, it's critically important is for the Ministry of Economy and Sustainable Development of Georgia, because as you are aware, in the main policy is the maximum utilization of the local renewable energy. But of course, and here is a question when and how many capacity and how to develop and renewable energy. As regards to your question at PTA, as you are aware, and the time it's a key challenge and the in our targets. As you are aware, the decarbonization of the electricity sector is one of the main priorities and for the development of our energy sector. 80% of our electricity already comes from the renewable energy sources, but it's important for us to reduce the reliance on the important and the fossil fuel as much as possible for the further development our local renewable energy capacity. It's crucial to advance the variable and renewable energy sources such as wind and solar and exploring opportunities for the development of the geothermal biomass energy and green hydrogen as well. And speaking of the green and hydrogen, and we haven't finalized our draft green hydrogen strategy, and having the great and hopes and for the development of not only in domestic and hydrogen production, but also in the transit and the capacities from Central Asia and the Caucasus to the EU. The key and priority of the Ministry of Economy and Sustainable Development of Georgia is to continue in the directions and the create and the variable environmental for the deployment of the new and renewable energy projects, as a number of the initiatives are underway to harmonize our energy and legislation with EU energy acquis and to implement the measures and outlines in the National Energy and Climate Plan. We have several noteworthy and the goals, not only for the gross and final energy consumption, but also for the uptake of renewable energy in the transport sector, in the building, and in the energy intensity sector. And we will need significant resources to realize our goals. As it's currently mentioned, and we have very ambitious targets, and for 2030, including in the field of renewable energy, this becomes obvious when we consider the fact currently the share of renewable energy in its gross final energy consumption is at around the 18 and 90%, not more. In this regard, in order to achieve our targets, there is a need to significant transformations. As you are aware, and the transport sector is one of the biggest greenhouse gas emitters, and at the same time, share of renewable energy in the transport is much less than 1%. Therefore, but also it's very important, and totally we have very ambitious target, but as regards to the transport sector, here is our targets is around the 7%. Therefore, in our vision and promotion of the biofuels in the transport, as well as an electric vehicle, and will support us to achieve these ambitious targets. Another and very important directions is that we haven't identified the electrification of and use and sectors, especially in heating. Of course, and without a specific legislation and support schemes and awareness raising, this process will be slow. Another important directions that will be prioritized in the upcoming period is the citizens' empowerment and their active involvement into the energy and transition activities, namely through renewable energy communities. We haven't seen that and through a net metering and also scheme for interest and for renewable energy has significantly increased in the past period. It isn't the brief information from my side, but again, and as I mentioned, and the ambitious targets is there. Totally is 27.4% renewable energy share is the energy balance. But of course, as I mentioned, then the 7% and the renewable energy using is the transport sector. Also, it's a very huge number for us. And of course, as I mentioned, and Petia, and the time is so limited because as you are aware, we left in the 5:30 and the maximum in the period. That's why I think in the practical implementation in the renewable energy is very important for us. Of course, and we have a new instrument and support scheme in the power generation, including in the contract for difference mechanism, including in PPA, power purchase agreement. We think in the practical implementation and the it's very important for us, of course, and the small and medium size and their projects in the renewable energy, including in the transport sector, including in SMEs and small and medium sized enterprises. It's a critical important for the government side because, as you are aware, in Ministry of Economy and Sustainable Development works of the policy parts and works of the regulation and statements and order and relevant activities, but as regards and the practical development of the renewable energy, it's a critical important for the for Georgian government. Thank you again. I will stop here and over to you.
Yeah,
and
thank you for this broad overview. It really sets the scene for the next questions, and I think you gave a lot of feedback what is planned by the ministry. You mentioned a lot about the end-use sectors and the consumer empowerment and local value chains, which is very much linked to the municipalities and to their role. And this is maybe the right time to invite George to share with us what is his view, what are the urgent recommendations for the municipalities from our report. What do you consider as a main priority there?
Thank you for having me here. Firstly, I would like to express my gratitude of including municipality in the recommendations, because we all live in the municipalities, we all drive or are passengers of the transports that are moving on the land of the municipality. We live or work at the buildings that stand on the municipal plots of the lands. So all in all, yes, municipalities are kind of frontliner to the energy transition processes. They are frontliner with the society, community, to whom they're gonna to deliver the final services. I mean, all energy services to be delivered there. And yet, in Georgia, decentralization of the energy-related issues to be still developed, and I would like to underline my satisfaction of having a specific recommendation on particular topic. Although the law on energy efficiency of Georgia creates a regulatory environment for engaging municipalities while inviting them to develop their energy and climate action plans that has to be integrated later on in to the national ones. The system and the practice is still not established. That's why, yes, having the municipalities in the including the municipalities in the recommendation is the critically important. And be more precise, I would like to say that formalizing the functions and the roles of the municipalities into the energy and climate related development happening in the country, it's a critically important side to the providing or creating sufficient or available financing mechanisms. Could that be a revolving fund or other types of innovative financing mechanisms that could be used by the municipalities in addressing their role in the energy transition? That obviously should include the energy poverty related issues as well.
Thank you, George. So the urgent priorities is empowerment of municipalities, financing and addressing energy poverty and just transition issues. Margarita already mentioned the importance of alignment of the acquis with European Union legislation and energy community. So my next question goes to Salome. How do you see the recommendations? What are the main priorities for energy community that is also touched upon in our recommendations? What do you see as most urgent?
Thank you very much for the question, Petya. And I would like to start by saying that this is a very good report and congratulations on it. It does a great job in providing the review of the status quo, but also it provides some amazing recommendations that are both ambitious but also actionable. In terms of urgency, I think from my perspective, the most urgent set of actions would be the ones that are provided under the effective governance for the energy transition, namely facilitating consolidated energy and climate planning, establishing a special body which would be in charge of implementing the energy transition, as well as facilitating an active role of the municipalities that George already discussed. And let me provide the details why I think that these parts are the most urgent ones. So first, the transition requires, of course, a shared vision and also consistent narrative across both energy and climate policies. And planning documents like the NECP, NDC, and LEDS, they all play a crucial role. But unless they are developed in a way that is aligned and also externally coherent, unless they are grounded on shared assumptions and modeling, then there is a risk that targets which are provided in this document might not be implemented as soon as we wanted them to be. As to the establishing a special body which would be in charge of energy transition, it is very important to have a dedicated engine to move across the reforms. Even if we have the best theoretical documents and policies, unless we have a good body which would be basically owner of this document and in charge of the agenda of implementing the energy transition, all these policy documents might go in vain. So we need a special body which has a clear mandate, which has technical expertise and also cross-sectoral perspective, which would ensure coordination between different ministries and levels of government, which would ensure continuity of the reforms and also visibility of progress, which is a very important part of implementation. As to the empowering of municipalities, just to add and maybe reiterate what George already has said, well, it is very important to engage municipalities very closely in this process, because municipalities are not only where energy is consumed, but also where solutions are created. By building renovations, heating upgrades, local solar and citizen engagement, they can really contribute to this process. And by enabling municipalities with a clear mandate, funding, and also by giving them access to technical support, would unlock really enormous implementation potential. So together, I think these three actions could provide, so to say, institutional backbone, which would allow us to implement energy transition successfully.
Thank you, Salome, for your clear messages. Energy Community Secretariat is a key partner of IRENA in this region, and we stand ready to work with all of you also for the implementation of the recommendations, and we are ready to move this forward in the coming months. Let me move to the private sector and ask Maya because the private sector has the crucial role also in the implementation of the recommendations. How do you see your role, and how this role could be further strengthened actually in the process of the implementation?
Thank you very much for this opportunity. I really highly appreciate each of you for providing this really very important presentation for Georgia, and I would be grateful as soon as this meeting will be ended to share this presentation with the participants, please, in order to take these recommendations in the future of our action plans. Regarding the private sector, let me start with the law on energy and water supply. This absolutely new law was adopted in 2019 by the parliament, and hereby the private sector is the key player of implementing whatever was adopted a couple of years ago. Currently, we are facing some challenges in the implementation process. And whatever we would wish and would like to ask the public sector is more communication and more involvement of private sector stakeholders in this process. There are lots of amendments that need to be taken because, as Salome, Georgi, and Margarita mentioned, there are lots of international, let's say, recommendations. However, it should be tailored to the reality. So to the reality where Georgia is, where we want to be, and how to achieve this process. So Georgia mentioned the awareness and involvement of municipalities, and I absolutely share this notion. GREDA are having lots of meetings. We already had 12 meetings in regions, and we realized that there are lots of not popular questions asked, and we are required to answer these not popular questions very openly, frankly, and these questions are coming from small and medium private sector representatives as well as from the municipality members. They want to have much more information rather than they are informed just right now. I would welcome corporate PPAs as a representative of the let's say, private sector. I would welcome green bonds in this process. I would welcome more information regarding green hydrogen, as far as private sector representatives are now thinking to diversify their investments and not only to invest into the hydro, solar, and wind, but also to invest into green hydrogen. Having on mind this, I would be really very grateful in case we are provided much more practical experience and cases in this respect. Furthermore, just one very important thing is that Georgia is currently exporting electricity to Turkey, but importing electricity from Azerbaijan. We are now talking, and if you look at the online, let's say, indicators, you will realize that currently the consumption is somewhere 2,100 megawatt, and Georgia is now generating enough electricity to supply entire Georgia's territory. However, we need much more in order to export. So because of this, we are importing. Currently, we don't switch thermal power plants. We are only focused on hydro and wind power plant. While having these indicators, it is really very important that April and May are really interesting months. And I remember that our colleague emphasized that it's raining outside, but energy representatives are quite happy with this weather because it means that we're generating more electricity. So for some of us, it's good news. However, we perfectly understand that in a couple of days, we will face some other reality and we have to catch up with this reality. Consumption is exaggerating generation. So we have to face this reality and we have to catch up with this. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Maya. Thank you for identifying these priorities. I hope they will be taken into account in the near future. And as I already mentioned several times, we are ready to work with all of you in this regard. And I think it's the right time to invite also Mohammed from Masdar, this company is a very active investor in not only in Georgia, but in the whole region and in Southeastern Europe. So Mohammed, from the perspective of Masdar, what are the main opportunities and benefits that countries like Georgia could realize by scaling up renewables-driven energy transition investments, which are aligned with the COP28 pledge for tripling renewables? We remember this remarkable achievement here in UAE, and how this could be aligned with with the national targets of the countries.
Thank you, Petya. As you've said, Masdar is very active in Georgia. We've been in Georgia since 2021, so 4 years now. We're developing currently the country's largest solar power plant, around 100 megawatts in capacity, in coordination with the Georgian Energy Development Fund. This is a public-private partnership project, and we see the opportunity in Georgia. So on the opportunities, I mean, Georgia has vast solar and wind resources. In particular, when it comes to wind, the strategic kind of location between the Black Sea and the Caspian Sea means that you have excellent bidirectional wind flows, which are ideal for wind generation. So the resources are there, and at the same time, the demand for electricity is there. You have the local demand for power, of course. My colleagues on the panel have already spoken quite a lot about how much power is being imported. And so clearly there's that local demand. If you're able to generate electricity, you can sell it. But there's also the possibility of exporting. And in particular, one very interesting opportunity is the possibility to export to Europe through the Black Sea submarine cable that's currently under development. So this would unlock a massive market, and Georgia is the closest. I understand this cable is being developed for kind of export of power from Georgia, Azerbaijan, and potentially even some countries across the Caspian Sea. But Georgia is in the kind of best location to do so. So the opportunity in Georgia is there. Masdar recognizes it, and that's why we've been in the market for several years now. And in terms of the benefits that can be realized from scaling up renewable energy generation in Georgia, there are several direct benefits that we can talk about. So first off is the stimulation of the local economy, particularly by creating jobs. So as one example, our solar PV project that's currently under development will create around 200 jobs during construction. And of course, during operation, to maintain the plant, you have a few dozen jobs as well that continue for 25 years. So these are long-term jobs. Another direct benefit is the enhancement of the country's energy security. So over the last decade, electricity consumption in Georgia has been growing at a much faster rate than electricity generation. The figures I've got are around 4.5% compound annual growth rate over the last decade for the electricity consumption, compared to only 2.8% compound annual growth rate for the generation. And this is clear in the increasing requirement to import electricity. It's been increasing a lot over the past decade, actually. Between 2012 and 2019, it tripled the amount of electricity import in Georgia. And this issue is exacerbated by the reliance on hydropower. So as my colleagues on the panel mentioned, about 80% of the generation comes from hydropower, which during the winter is reduced greatly. And so the requirement to import is even greater in the winter. You have this seasonal generation. So, increasing and scaling up solar and wind generation in Georgia will really improve this issue, will reduce the reliance on imports, and therefore improve Georgia's energy security. Now, if we talk about indirect benefits, I mentioned the stimulation of the local economy. This is something we see, in Azerbaijan and Uzbekistan. where we've developed projects already. We've got more than 2 gigawatts in Uzbekistan and about 1.2 gigawatts in Azerbaijan, and we've seen entire industries spawn as a result of these projects, because you've got the supply chain basically being slowly localized in these countries, and the local contractors and even new technologies like now battery storage and hydrogen are being developed in Uzbekistan and slowly now in Azerbaijan. And obviously, another indirect benefit is with the jobs that come from the projects that we do, you have the development of the local expertise, not just for our projects, but for future projects. There's a transfer of knowledge and expertise from the international investors that are initially investing in these projects and scaling them up to the local population. And this is, very relevant when it comes to Masdar. Actually, Masdar, as a word in Arabic, means the source. And the reason for that was it was supposed to be a source of knowledge. This name they came up with it in 2006. So we, one of our kind of primary mandates is to transfer knowledge, not just in the UAE but in the region and globally. And this is something that we aim to do in Georgia, and we've already started to do in Georgia. So this is, again, another indirect benefit of scaling up renewables in Georgia.
Thank you, Mohammed. From this optimistic overview, I hope it will trigger more active actions on the ground. And we are fully aligned with what you just shared. We at IRENA assess every year the jobs related to renewables, and we see this constant growth in renewables jobs and the socioeconomic benefits that the renewables bring on the ground. It's also time now to invite the World Bank, Florian. We know that they have a lot of activities on the ground that are also aligned with our report and what we recommend. So Florian, could you highlight some of your recent projects and how do you see the recommendations?
Yes, certainly. First of all, thank you so much for the invitation to this distinguished panel, and congratulations to IRENA and the government on an excellent report. We read it with pleasure and also very much supportive of the recommendations to improve and increase the sustainability, affordability, and reliability of Georgia's energy sector overall. We've been talking mainly, I think, about electricity so far. So the World Bank is very much engaged as a group in the power sector, from the IFC side in financing private sector renewable energy generation, MIGA providing guarantees, and we at the IBRD, the public sector arm, have been financing mainly grid infrastructure. Let me highlight 3 recent projects. First of all, the Transmission Grid Strengthening Project, or TGSP, which closed in 2023, where we helped the GSE finance high voltage transmission infrastructure to evacuate power from the Shuachevi hydropower plant, which was funded jointly by the IFC and MIGA, as well as other financiers, ADB and others. So I think this very much encapsulates how, as World Bank, together with the government and GSE as SOE, plus the private sector, we've been able to increase renewable energy generation and enable secure and reliable power evacuation to really provide more electricity and the sustainable electricity to people in Georgia. Ongoing, we have the Energy Supply Reliability and Financial Recovery Project, or ESR-FRP, which I think is very important for the discussion we're having. Component 1 under this finances the 500 kV Tsakaltubu substation, as well as the 500 kV Tsakaltubu-Jvari transmission line, which backstops the existing Imereti line connecting East and Western Georgia. The line has not yet started construction, but will be critical to evacuate power under the government's newly signed MOUs with the private sector from Western Georgia, especially the mountainous region. So we very much hope we can increase the speed of implementation together with our friends at GSE to then enable the private sector to build and finance the generation, especially hydro, in the Western Georgian mountains. Thanks to Mohammed for already mentioning the Black Sea Submarine Cable, or BSSC. This is part of, it's a very lengthy name, the Enhancing Energy Security Through Power Interconnection and Renewable Energy Program, or the Aspire project, which Georgia signed with the World Bank in May 2024. This is a three-phase project which in essence wants to arrive at the construction of a submarine cable from Georgia to Romania, which would enable increased power evacuation and obviously increase the financial viability of some of these projects. I mean, my four speakers have mentioned the seasonality of Georgia's hydro supply. So we're seeing oversupply in summer, and there are not enough export opportunities. I also want to note that in recent years, exports have actually decreased because Turkey is not really needing that much energy anymore. So we need, I think, new export markets, and the EU with, let's say about 1,000 gigawatt power system all over is obviously the most viable location. Now, there is a lot of that has to be done in terms of regulatory progress, etc., together with the energy community to enable Georgia to connect to the EU. So it still is a long and I would say rocky way ahead. But we do congratulate the government for its vision on this flagship project, and very much grateful to all the four speakers for mentioning also the importance of such a large-scale project, which in Georgia, is, I think, equal to the Anaklia port development and other big infrastructure projects. Let me just very briefly say we're also doing more in terms of the recommendations. We had a technical assistance that found about 3 gigawatt of solar rooftop potential in 4 cities in Georgia. It's accessible online. We're working very much also on other sources of energy like geothermal. We've supported the CFD auctions, and I would say, as I'm exceeding my time, I generally am really focused on helping the government on the policy framework, on also analytical pieces to look into future possibilities, hydrogen as well, and then to provide the financing to the government and state-owned enterprises to help implement the projects. I just want to again repeat that we're World Bank Group, so it's not just the IBRD and the public sector. The IFC is ready to support companies like Mazda, GREDA's members and others, and we also have the possibility to provide guarantees via MIGA. Finally, we will read your report with great interest because we are also currently developing the Climate and Country Development Report for Georgia, or CCDR, which we hope to launch towards the end of the year. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Florian. Thank you for this overview, very detailed. I hope we'll have time to touch upon again the topic about the heating systems. We are running a bit behind the schedule, but thank you for mentioning it still here, and we remain available if you see room for joint work on the ground or capacity building activities. Please do not hesitate to get in touch with us. Margarita, do you want to add something in relation to the international partners' role in this project of the in this process of the implementation of the recommendations, or we can move on to the next question? As I said, we are running behind the schedule. Only if you have 1 or 2 sentences, not more.
Thank you so much, Petia. As I mentioned, and the cooperation with IRENA and with an international organizations in the renewable energy, it's very important because, as I mentioned today, and our main policy and the security is renewable energy and the direction. Also, in the Petia, IRENA can play a crucial role in the development of the Georgian energy sector through an capacity building, assistance with data completion and the other activities related to the energy transition assessment and recommendation. I believe that in action 3, facilitating and the active role on the municipalities in the energy transition, and the action 4, facilitating and consolidated energy and the climate planning are in particular and relevant and for the Ministry of Economy and Sustainable Development, as they directly enter into the adoption of the more sustainable policies and can greatly and strengthen government capacity for the execution of the renewable energy projects through and the more robust and legislation and the better and oversights. Also, IRENA can in close cooperation with the Ministry of Economy and Sustainable Development and the related and authorities in Georgia to allow and for the capacity building, identification of the more detailed and challenges, and for the development of the strong and the coordination and mechanisms. At the same time, I would like to highlight and the role of the IRENA as an excellent and platform for the like-mentioned and countries who are interested in the advancing renewable energy technologies in their and the respective in the countries. Also, and this is the practical platform and where we can share our experience in the field of the renewable energy, and the same time and learn from the other member states about their success and the based on the practices. It goes and without saying that in short these years in the IRENA and having established the pool of the professionals whose the extensive expertise assist the member states with the policy planning and development of the energy system. I will stop here. And Petia, thank you so much and again and for excellent cooperation, namely Petia and Varvara and Lisa and others. Thank you so much for excellent cooperation. It was a great and the support for the Ministry of Economy and Sustainable Development.
Thank you, Margarita. Thank you for your kind words, and your suggestions are thoroughly noted. We'll get back to this in the coming months.
Yeah.
Maya, let's come back again to the private sector. You mentioned a lot of suggestions for improvement of the environment and how the private sector could be the role of the private sector could be facilitated, but could you please let us know if how do you consider the private sector preparedness to go into this direction and have more renewables? To what extent also solar and wind are ready to compete with this high share of hydropower in the country? Where do you face the main challenges in the project development and in relation to the preparation of the documentation, project design, also funding? How do you see the preparedness of the private sector in this respect?
Thank you very much for this question, and I absolutely share Margarita's words that this cooperation and collaboration gives us an opportunity to develop as fast as possible. You know what is the situation currently? In the coming 2 years, as a private sector representative, we are waiting that we're going to have the solar power plant building boom. We perfectly know that there was high interest in investing into the solar power plants due to the fact that it is much more easier in terms of communication with the local communities. This is a really very important thing. And I have to emphasize that Georgia has more than 100-year experience of building hydropower plants. And we definitely need Namohwani, Neskra, and Hudoni if we want to have energy independence and energy safety. This is really very important thing. And we are thinking that foreign investors have to invest into this 3 huge hydropower plants. If not, then the government should take this responsibility, as it was done related to the wind power plant, and then it's a great opportunity to sell it to the private sector. Why? There is a huge challenge regarding the bureaucracy. We're waiting for one-stop shop, one window opportunity for private sector. And we don't want this one window to become another barrier for the private sector. Each minute for private sector is important. Let me emphasize that getting money for private sector turned out to be not so important as the time frame of getting this money back. For hydro, it's somewhere 10 years, from 10 to 15. Let's be very objective in this respect. For solar, it's less, and for wind, it's more or less, let's say 7 or so, from 7 to 10 years. Let's look at the reality, what we have now. Those investors who were investing into the hydropower plant development, they changed their minds and they started investing into solar projects. It has its argumentation, definitely, but currently they moved from feasibility study into the building process. And now they are facing those challenges that were put into the law that was adopted in 2019. There is no blame that these maybe things that were put into the law was not forecasted so well due to the fact that none of us had an experience in building solar power plants. Now we moved into the practice and now we are facing those challenges. These challenges are mostly related to the, as my colleagues mentioned, into the relations of the local municipalities. Due to the fact they don't have enough information, they are not equipped with respective regulatory and energy management issues, and they are in high need to be better educated and to squeeze the time in order to give a chance to Georgia to generate as much electricity as possible. Well, I realized that my colleague Mohammed mentioned regarding the Masdar and mentioned the export opportunities for Georgia. In 2024, that was the first case for the last 9 years that Armenia imported electricity from Georgia. So, and I realized that from, according to the 10-year development plan, which was created by the Georgia State Electric System, there is added another line from Georgia to Armenia and back. So here we see that 150 megawatt transmission line is now strengthened, and the opportunity will be somewhere 450 megawatt. I mean the transmission line capacity. So once again, this is apart from this Black Sea cable opportunity, another chance to export and import from Armenia again. So having on mind, Georgia is a real hub of generating electricity, exporting electricity, and we have to use this chance. We utilized hydro just for 25%, wind 1.7%, and no solar. I think that we have to accelerate this process. I know that the ministry and GSE have their plan that by 2030, they think to commission under Black Sea cable. So we have to enhance and unite our strengths in order to increase the generation part of this of the electricity sector. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Maya. Thank you. Mohammed, do you have any immediate reaction, or maybe more about how, what is the Masdar perspective in relation to the funds availability in countries like Georgia, and do you see any role of the public finance that is required? What do you think about this?
Sure. I think with Georgia and in general with what we've seen in other countries in the CIS region is there are a few hurdles to foreign direct investment coming into these kinds of projects. So one that keeps coming up again and again is the grid, for example. The capital is there for developing these generation projects, but some clarity is needed on where one can connect and whether they'll be curtailed, and you kind of in some countries there isn't really a roadmap for what's going to happen with the grid in the medium to long term. But Georgia, I would say, excels in this because you have GSE regularly updating their 10-year network development plan. So this was actually something that we found quite useful in Georgia, and helped to kind of reduce the perceived risk when we first entered the market. So that's on the grid. The other kind of a big hurdle is the regulatory framework. So in order to develop solar and wind projects on a large scale with competitive tariffs, we will need to utilize non-recourse project finance. And in order to get that finance, what is really needed is a suite of bankable kind of project documents, the power purchase agreement, relevant government support agreement, like in Georgia, it's called the implementation agreement, a bankable grid connection agreement. These need to have the relevant protections that will give lenders the comfort to lend to the project on a non-recourse basis. So things like protection against FX fluctuations, guarantees from the government to back up the off-taker, basically, at least for termination payments, and relevant termination payments as well. You'll need the lenders to know that regardless of what happens, they'll always be paid their money back, right? So even if the project is terminated, there needs to be termination payments that compensate the lenders appropriately. Things like guarantees of no curtailment or limited curtailment, so that the generation profile and basically the revenue profile over the life of the project can be clear. Say the government is putting a lot of effort in collaboration with the private sector, like with entities like Masdar, and also in collaboration with DFIs like EBRD, to develop such a bankable suite of project documents. But I would say we're just getting there. It's been a journey. And when we first entered the market, I would say we didn't find such a structure in place that could enable this long-term non-recourse project financing. But now, we're nearly there with our solar project, and we've seen it with other projects as well. There's a couple of wind projects that, as we understand, are also have managed to kind of get bankable project agreements that are acceptable to development finance institutions. But one thing my colleague Maya mentioned is the time, right? Which is very important for the private sector. Now, for Masdar, we're able to, take the time and the years really to develop that bankable suite of documents. But I think some other private sector investors may not be willing to invest so much time and money in the country. They kind of, what would be really helpful is standardization of the project agreements, where there's a precedent that is banked by development finance institutions, one for solar, one for wind, because the technology does matter a little bit, and then this can kind of just be used for all future projects, either projects that are done on a bilateral basis through negotiating PPAs, or for CFDs. And I know this is something, again, the government of Georgia is already kind of working on and has in mind. And I know there was some cooperation already with development finance institutions to do that for the CFD auctions that back a year and a half ago or so. But this is really the main hurdle I see is the framework, the regulatory framework. And in terms of the laws, I mean, Georgia, I would say, has a pretty clear, there's the law on energy and water supply, but there's also a pretty clear public-private partnership process. which we found quite useful as well when we entered the market. So these are really critical for stimulating that private sector investment in the sector. And another thing is when you asked about public finance. I mean, when we first came into the market, there were issues with the government providing guarantees of payment for PPAs. So this is where really public finance is very important. It's de-risking investments. So, say our off-taker is ESCO. Lenders will not really rely on ESCO in terms of credit rating, to back the project. They will rely on the sovereign credit rating of Georgia. So the government really enables the project by providing some guarantee to enhance the creditworthiness of ESCO, of the off-taker. This is where I think public finance plays a key role. It's in de-risking the project, essentially. So I would just say one other hurdle is just the expertise, having the local expertise. When we first entered, it was a little bit difficult to find the relevant personnel to develop the project. But this is, again, something Masdar always aims to do, as I said before, is to transfer that knowledge and expertise and to develop it locally, which will hopefully help also with future projects, with other foreign investors when they come in. They will find that the local population already has that knowledge and expertise. So yeah, those are...
Thank you, Mohammed. Thank you for touching upon this topic about the public funds and the public finance tools. If we continue in this line, I want to mention again this recommendation about revolving fund. If you move to smaller scale projects, renewables projects, and also projects in energy efficiency field, I would like to ask Florian, what is your opinion about this recommendation, and do you see also other tools that could facilitate this small scale implementation, again, moving to the municipality level and public awareness of the energy transition?
No, thank you so much for that question. I think public finance for the development, especially of energy efficiency, is incredibly important. An implementation and financing mechanism such as a revolving fund has been supported by the World Bank in a number of countries, not just around the world, but also in the Europe and Central Asia region. And I have to say, with mixed results. So the key, again, in any institutional structures, financing structures, is how you execute them. So in our view, in Georgia, it would make a lot of sense to start, I think, with the public buildings, as also required by the European Energy Community, to reach the 3% goal. We do understand that there's a lot more questions, pertaining to Georgia's fiscal space, how much availability the government has to support private-led efforts. For energy efficiency, however, we think it is the first fuel. We are very keen on helping Georgia develop that recommendation towards the implementation of a funding mechanism that could support municipalities, first of all, and then also first mover buildings. And we hope the government could provide incentives to both private households as well as commercial enterprises with the financing via a revolving fund that can be repaid in the end. We have, I think, examples where you can see, for example, you could charge higher prices for the financing based on project success in the end. So if you provide financing and the private sector or private household implements in a certain amount of time, you could lower the interest rates. For everything that takes longer, you could put it up higher. So there's a lot to do. One comment I would make, I'm not that sure at the recommendation to combine energy efficiency and renewables. First of all, if I look at the energy sector institutional landscape in Georgia, there is already the Georgian Energy Development Fund. which is charged with supporting generation. So I think we would need to be very careful to have too many institutions doing the same. I would think strengthening GEDF on the renewable side would make a lot more sense. Then on solar rooftop PV, I mean, we were very keen and think Georgia has a big opportunity, also given the really significant potentials just in Tbilisi, Batumi, Rustavi, and Kutaisi. The problem is grids, to go back what others also said, right? And there we're not talking about GSE, and we're talking about the distribution sector, which is fully privatized. And I think everyone around the table who lives in Georgia has been seeing frequent electricity outages. That means, first of all, rather than incentivizing solar rooftop PV, we need to strengthen the grids. According to what I know, is Energo Pro already said their grid cannot take more. That means the financing mechanism wouldn't help because nobody would be able to connect. So I think for small-scale renewable energy, there are other incentives mechanisms, such as also feedback, net metering, annual metering, etc., that could be incentivized and to build that if it then makes financial sense. But the key again is the technical ability of the grid to really absorb this. One suggestion could be that actually GEDF or someone else does this on an SOE level, also to minimize the impacts on the distribution and then transmission grid in the end. If there's a land and lease, so to say, lease option that could be centralized, and then GSE would have much better visibility on what's coming to their grid. And let me stop here because I'm venturing out far beyond your question.
No, don't worry. It was very helpful. So my understanding is that you see more potential in terms of energy efficiency projects for a revolving fund. Thank you very much. We still have 3 minutes left. I don't see any questions in the chat box. This is to the audience. This is your last chance to ask or give feedback. Otherwise, I would ask our distinguished panelists. First of all, I would want to thank all of you for your very insightful feedback and very insightful responses for all these questions. I'll give you the opportunity for your closing messages. If we don't have any we don't have any other questions from the audience, please feel free to share with us if there are any other points that you wanted to share, and due to the time constraints we couldn't cover, but only with 1 point in 1 sentence, please.
Can I?
Yes, George, please go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you. Nothing new about the grid again. I supposed to deliver short information about the decarbonization, and the key recommendation there is the electric wheel charging station with the fast charging, with the focus on the fast charging, and we arrive to the grid. So the study to be conducted, and you have a recommendation on that, but it has to be crystallized while starting this EV charging station installation. We should go to the grid and analyze whether it is ready for absorption this type of high power installations in the urban areas. So you have a recommendation on conducting study, and I would be kind of crystallizing the part of the study that would be focused on the grid stability with the installations. And thanks for giving me an opportunity to speak on this panel, and and
thank you,
wish you
George.
all happy Easter.
Thank you, George. Thank you. I see we have 1 question in the chat box. Thank you for that. Regarding the decarbonization strategy for heating and cooling, are any data set available highlighting major industrial heat and cooling consumers in industrial non-residential sector in Georgia? I think it is to the ministry, but if anyone else.
May I in the Petia?
Yes, yes. Please
Yeah,
go
thank
ahead.
you so much and for this question. As you are aware, in the red number 2 in Renewable Energy Directive 2 and covers and these issues, but as you are aware, we transposed in the Renewable Energy Directive, but it's not approved by the Parliament yet. As regards in the non-residential sectors and the cooling consumers, it's a pity, but in the we have not and the developed and the relevant case study and the directions and the for the ministry, and we think and later and will introduce and more information about an heating and cooling system in Georgia, including and guarantee of origin in the same field. But as regards now, it's a pity, but have not and prepare some first draft of these issues. And reason is, and the PETIA, as you are aware, and in the Soviet Union in Georgia, here was in the central heating system. And now, and we have not in the central heating system. And question is, and what will be in the later? I don't know what will be in later, but now, and the first we need to prepare information what will be in the same field and next and how to develop. That's why I will stop here and probably in the next and the year and will be a more clear picture and how to prepare in this initiative. It will be, for example, canceled from the ministry side, or it will be how to say in the some new and direction in this field.
Okay.
Yeah.
Work in progress.
Progress.
Okay. So last chance for the speakers for final words. I think Salome we didn't give her a lot of opportunity to speak. Salome, do you have anything to add?
It's very difficult to, make it so concise that it fits in just one sentence.
I know, but there is always time constraint,
Sure, no worries. I just want to say that, as I already noted, I think this is really an outstanding report, and it is not very often that I see such a good structure that actually very helpful recommendations and reports. So I hope and I know that the ministry will take to utmost consideration the provided recommendations, and I hope that they will be implemented to the extent possible. And I'm sure if they are implemented, they will be very helpful for Georgian energy transition. And thank you to everyone for a very interesting discussion.
Thank you, Salome, for these nice words. As I said, we are here to work together, and we'll have enough opportunity to exchange for precise measures and implementing actions. Florian, I see that you want to say something.
Maybe just one high-level comment also from the discussion. When we're talking about energy independence, a lot of people tend to focus in Georgia on the power sector. I think it's very important that the government in its sustainability and independence security strategy looks at all the sectors. Georgia is fully import dependent. The development of a gigawatt or 2 gigawatt of power will not change that. We need to start looking at the transport sector as well as the heating sector. Without that, energy independence will be impossible. That also goes to reviewing very important strategies of the government. The expansion of the gas heating system is right? People need heat, but it goes counter to Georgia's actual strategy. So there is a lot to do, and we're very happy to have such excellent counterparts in the ministry and also other support mechanisms such as your report that highlight some of these issues, and I look forward to working together to really help Georgia achieve this in an integrated way.
Thank you, Florian. I think this is a very good conclusion of our discussion. We'll have a coffee break now for 5 minutes, and then we will resume with the next session, which is related to the other stream of our work in Georgia, namely the NSCP and NDC alignment process. I thank you all for all the panelists and all the audience for your participation, and I hope you will stay with us also for the next panel. And once again, we are ready to continue working with all of you for the implementation of the recommendations and also for new projects that could arise in the near future. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Petia. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we will resume now, and it is, I would like firstly to welcome you all back. It is time for our second panel, dedicated to the comparative analysis and recommendations for alignment of the climate ambition in Georgia National Energy and Climate Plans, NECP, and the update of the upcoming National Determined Contributions, NDCs. It's my great pleasure to introduce my colleague Ines Jakob. Ines is Associate Program Officer, Technology and Infrastructure in IRENA, and she will kindly give the overview presentation of the IRENA analysis and the recommendations. Ines, the floor is yours. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much, Barbara. I hope you all can see my presentation. Can you confirm?
Yes, I think we just need a few seconds more. We still don't see it, but I'm sure it's coming.
Oh, wait. I think I stopped sharing.
Mm-hmm.
Can you confirm if you can see it?
Yes, I see that. Yes, now we can see it in full screen. Thank you, Ines. You may proceed.
Okay, thank you so much, Barbara. Hello, everyone. Good morning. My name is Ines Jakob. As Barbara mentioned, I am an Associate Program Officer at IRENA's Innovation and Technology Center based in Bonn. And it is a pleasure to be here and present to you the work that IRENA has been doing on NDC and NECP alignment to support the upcoming NDC update in Georgia. First, I will give you a bit of context on this activity. In an effort towards aligning energy and climate planning documents, the Ministry of Economy and Sustainable Development and the Ministry of Environmental Protection and Agriculture requested IRENA's support in performing a comparative study of Georgia's NDC and last NDC and NECP. With a vision, with an analysis also of the mid-century vision set out in the LTLETs in order to align all these targets and contribute to the NDC update in 2025. We have done this by reviewing these national plans and studies, and this included a comprehensive review of underlying data sets. So our study was based on data. More specifically, we analyzed greenhouse gas emission reduction targets and renewable energy targets, also a bit of focus on energy efficiency. And based on this, we have provided recommendations and guidance to ensure that the targets to be set in the upcoming NDC are consistent with the different commitments that Georgia has, including the country's NECP, and also its alignment with the Energy Community acquis. And I wanted to iterate that aligned targets and national plans give a strong and unified message, which brings certainty to stakeholders. And this is quite important so that sector-specific companies, institutions, and investors support and have a decision making that contributes to advancing these targets. So this is why alignment of targets and national plans is crucial. I will go over this very quickly, but the National Energy and Climate Plan of Georgia was developed in line with the Energy Community acquis, and the state energy policy was adopted in June 2024. Process was coordinated by MOEST, and it outlines national energy and climate targets with a focus on reducing greenhouse gas emissions, increasing renewable energy deployment, and energy efficiency. And it also includes policies and measures that are required to achieve those targets. So here we see that the indicative targets that are included in the NECP regarding greenhouse gas emissions reductions and renewable energy. So the main target here is in the NDCP is the set target of reducing greenhouse gas emissions of by 57% by 2030 compared to 1990 levels. And a very important target in the NECP, which is in line with the Energy Community acquis, is the target of 27.4%, which was already mentioned a lot in the previous panel, of renewable energy share in its gross final energy consumption by 2030. The other quite relevant commitment of Georgia, and this is in terms of international commitments, is the nationally determined contribution. The last nationally determined contribution was submitted in 2021 and included a target of unconditionally reducing its greenhouse gas emissions to 35% below 1990 levels by 2030. And this target contributes to the global effort towards 1.5 degrees average global temperature of average global temperature, and also to Georgia's long-term ambition of net zero by 2050, as this was defined in the country's long-term low-emission development strategy. Both the NDC and the LT-LEDs processes have been coordinated by MEPA. And we also have the target that was already mentioned quite sometimes, the 27.4% target share of renewable energy. So our analysis, as I mentioned, focus a lot on data. I won't go too much detail into this because we want to focus on the recommendations today. But we looked at the different scenarios under these three planning documents. And something that is immediately visible is that there were different emission scopes in the documents, some sectorial breakdown differences as well, and the last NDC did not include the LULUCF sector in the greenhouse gas emissions reductions target. We also looked at Georgia's renewable energy plans in the context of the UAE consensus, so the pledge to tripling renewable energy capacity. And while the NDC does not include specific renewable energy targets, the NECP and LTLETs have renewable energy projections that show significant renewable energy growth towards 2030. And when we compare to IRENA's 1.5 scenario, which is in line with the UAE consensus, and the projected global average renewable energy capacity share in the total capacity mix. These 2030 projections in Georgia's NECP and LTLETs are higher than the global average. So this presents a very good effort from Georgia to deploy renewable energy. However, the LTLETs reveals that deeper emission reductions are required in order to reach this important climate neutrality target towards 2050. And these additional efforts include additional policy efforts, also technology innovation. So this indicates some potential for Georgia to further accelerate renewable energy deployment. So this is where I want to focus on the recommendations that came from this analysis. As I mentioned, our analysis was based on data. In this presentation, we are not focusing on the specific data, but we want to focus on the recommendations. So this analysis reviewed the 2021 NDC, NECP, and LTLETs in the context of preparing the upcoming NDC 3.0, and we found both areas of alignment and key divergences in terms of ambition levels, sectoral contributions, and assumptions across the different documents. It also highlighted some differences in baseline scenarios, in renewable energy projections, and one notable gap is between the NECP 2030 greenhouse gas reduction target and the unconditional NDC scenario. And we also see some gaps between near-term plans and the ambitious 2050 climate neutrality pathway that is set in the LTLETs. So addressing these issues in the upcoming NDC 3.0 can strengthen the overall coherence, credibility, and effectiveness of Georgia's climate and energy strategy. And our first recommendation, I don't want to overwhelm you with these graphs, but if we look at the unconditional NDC target of 35%, we compare it with the NECP target of 49% and the LTLET's climate neutrality aligned pathway. So for this most ambitious pathway set in the LTLETs, towards 2030, this greenhouse gas emissions reduction would be around 64% compared to 1990 levels. So here we see very different ambitions in these plans. We are aware, and I know that Masha will present this in the next presentation, that the upcoming NDC target will be aligned with the more ambitious NECP target, and this is a very good effort from Georgia to align these two targets. We also encourage to include the LULUCF sector in the upcoming NDC update, and making sure that the targets that are set reflect also the ambition of the mid-century LTLETs pathway. Another important misalignment or gap that was found in the 2021 NDC is that it lacks specific quantifiable targets in the renewable energy and energy efficiency. So here we would recommend, in order to elevate the strategic importance and provide clear policy signals, that Georgia could consider incorporating explicit and ambitious national targets for both renewable energy deployment and energy efficiency improvements into the NDC 3.0. And here this could reflect or potentially exceed the NECP's 27.4% share of renewable energy capacity in gross final energy consumption by 2030. This would make the NDC more comprehensive, and it would align better with the detailed planning that we see in the NECP. Another observation is that we saw misalignments in greenhouse gas emissions projections across sectors. And also, when we compare the NECP and the LTLEDs, which both have baseline scenario projections, there is also a lack of alignment in baseline scenarios. And here, in order to improve comparability and overall robustness of national energy and climate planning, it could be beneficial to promote a greater consistency in core assumptions and methodologies that are used for future updates of these plans, including NDC updates, but also future updates of NECP and LTLEDs. Having harmonized baseline scenarios and having key assumptions that are clearly documented in each plan allows for enhanced transparency, and it facilitates more effective policy evaluation. And finally, this is quite related to the previous recommendations, because we see that different ministries are responsible for different plans. So strengthening governance mechanisms for integrated planning and monitoring would allow that there is this coherence and harmonization of scenarios and assumptions in a more effective way. This is a recommendation that is included in the energy transition assessment, where we recommend that Georgia might consider formalizing or reinforcing mechanisms that are specifically dedicated to the alignment of these plans. So having a permanent planning team or department to analyze these different scenarios, to inform policy analysis and decision making, and to ensure a continued and coordinated planning for the energy sector would be quite important. And this planning team could also take the lead on aligning Georgia's energy and climate planning documents in upcoming update cycles. So I finished my presentation here. We are very glad to have this collaboration with Georgia, and to be able to contribute and support the upcoming NDC update. And I pass my word now over to Varvara. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Ines, very much for, I would say, perfectly balanced with the graphs and recommendations presentation. We appreciate it a lot. And now allow me to express my gratitude to Ms. Masho Kaknelidze. She will join us. She is the head of Climate Change Division from the Ministry of Environmental Protection and Agriculture of Georgia. And Ms. Kaknelidze will share with us presentation about the ongoing update of the NDC 3.0 process for Georgia. Just to check with Ms. Kaknelidze, would you be kindly sharing the presentation on your side?
If you could share, it will be very
Yes,
helpful.
of course, of course. I will prepare it. Thank you. Let me know, please, if you can see it now.
Yes, it's visible.
Thank you very much. The floor is yours. Thanks.
Thank you. Good morning and good afternoon, dear colleagues. It's a pleasure to join you today to share an update on the development of Georgia's third cycle of nationally determined contribution, NDC3. As Varvara already mentioned, I'm head of the Climate Change Division at the Ministry of the Environmental Protection and Agriculture of Georgia. Next slide, please. As you are aware, the NDC is the central instrument for advancing climate actions under the Paris Agreement. And in the third cycle, we are taking important steps to enhance its ambition and implementation potential. Next slide, please. Today, I will present the progress we have made on the NDC3 update and how we are aligning it with the Georgia's recently adopted National Energy and Climate Plan, NECP. The alignment is crucial as it allows us to establish a unified and coherent policy framework that reflects our national development priorities while also meeting our international climate commitments. I would like to acknowledge the valuable support we receive from the UNDP and the NDC partnership in preparing this updated contribution. We have completed the internal consultations with the key sectoral ministries and finalized both Georgian and English versions of the drafts, and the public consultations we are scheduling it for April 25th of this year, after which we will integrate feedback and conduct the final technical review. With that, I will walk you through where we are now, our current status, and some of the key areas where alignment with NECP is already taking shape. In the background, as a background, Georgia's current NDC was submitted in 2020. It sets unconditionally target of reducing greenhouse gas emissions by 35% by 2030 compared to 1990 level, and conditional target of 50 to 57% depending on the international support. The implementation period of NDC, current NDC was 2030. However, significant global developments, including the outcomes of the first global stocktake and the growing obligation under the energy community, we have created a strong momentum to revise and enhance our targets. And as a result, we are now in the final stages of preparing NDC. And next slide, please. And we have a new target. The draft NDC 3 proposes a new enhanced target, a 47% reduction of greenhouse gas emissions by 2030 and a 50% reduction by 2035, both compared to the 1990 levels. Additionally, we under the enhanced international finance and cooperation, we estimate cumulative emission reduction of approximately 26 million tons of CO2 equivalent by 2035. This reinforces our intent to contribute more strongly to global climate effort while integrating national climate and energy policy pathways. Next slide. NDC is being developed in close reference to the outcome of COP28 and the first global stock take, as I mentioned. We especially welcome the adoption of decision CMA5, which sets the global course for the next implementation cycle. Georgia fully supports the decision calling for tripling global renewable energy capacity by 2030, and we recognize the transformative potential this holds for global decarbonization. We also support the mitigation measures outlined in the same decision aimed at peaking global emissions and transitioning away from the fossil fuels. Next slide, please. These principles are reflected in the design of the NDC and the NCP as well. The key features of NDC3, Georgia's NDC reflects the strengthening mitigation framework aligned not only with the NECP but also with the long-term low emission development strategy. The update of the embrace of the update embraces just and inclusive transition, prioritizing vulnerable population and embedding the human rights-based approach. Climate technologies and artificial intelligence are recognized as the enablers of the implementation, particularly in the energy sector, where we are accelerating the deployment of the renewable technologies. Next slide, please. The time frame and scope for the implementation period, it covers 2026 to 2035 with the 1990 as the base year. Its scope includes 7 mitigation sectors: energy generation, transmission, buildings, transport, industry, waste, agriculture, and LULUCF, matching with the NECP structure to allow direct tracking and consistency. And this alignment was a deliberate choice responding to one of the key recommendations from the IRENA Technical Assistant Report. Next slide. This is the structure of the NDC. For the first time, the NDC will include the dedicated section on adaptation. On this slide, you can see marked in blue color. This is the new chapters, which will be included in our new NDC. Importantly, it will also reflect the renewable energy and energy efficiency importance from the NECP, which previously were not part of our core climate pledge in our previous NDC. Next, please. For the development of NDC, there has been a participatory and inclusive process. There were thematic working groups that were created for all major sectors, with contributions from the government sector, civil society, and private sector as well. This structure not only improves the robustness of the NDC, but it supports the long-term implementation, especially in the areas like the renewable and deployment, energy efficiency, and the land use change. Next, please. Challenges we face despite the progress. First, ensuring alignment across multiple planning instruments, again, DC, IDCP, and LTLETs, and the Climate Strategy and Action Plan. As we update our NDC, we will have to update the policy documents accordingly to the new targets. Second is the engagement across sectors, and capacity constraints hinder consistent participation. Third, climate finances, adaptation support, and the technology transfer that are still limited and must be scaled up. And these challenges also reinforces IRENA suggestions to strengthen interministerial coordination and governance frameworks. Next, please. As I already mentioned in the beginning of my presentation, we have already completed the Georgian and English versions, which will be actually sent out today, and we will make it public for all stakeholders. and we will have the public consultations on April 25th, and we will also send out the invitation for this meeting. And after we will hear hear their feedback and conduct the final technical review and the updated NDC, the final updated NDC, where we will include all the feedback that we will receive, will be presented to the Climate Change Council. Then after their approval, it will be sent to the government administration for the government approval. So after this, we are hopefully we will have the final version to be sent to the UNFCCC by the third quarter of 2025. This is all what I can share with you today. Of course, the presentation, detailed presentation, will be shared on April 25th, and we will have an opportunity to hear all stakeholders and hear their voices and hear their opinions, and we will consider all the feedback that we will incorporate in this NDC3 implementation. Thank you very much.
Many thanks, Ms. Hafnelice. We understand it's very busy period for you, and your presence is much appreciated here. Also, it is commendable to see the progress Georgia made so far. So thank you for your presentation. Now, let me introduce my colleague Simon Ben-Marasse. Simon is team lead of the technology and infrastructure in IRENA, and he will kindly moderate our second panel and also proceed with introducing our panelists today. Simon, the floor is yours. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much. I'm just checking if you can hear me well. Okay.
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Varvara, and also the previous presenter for their insight. This panel looks, following this presentation, we now focus critically toward implementation. How does Georgia weave together the thread of its climate ambition, ensuring that the NECP and what Masho mentioned, the vital NDC 3.0 update, and obviously the long-term vision with the LTLEDs form a strong, coherent strategy. And this is not about procedures. This is really about crafting an investable, actionable decarbonization pathway for Georgia. And we're privileged to have a panel with deep, practical experience to guide this discussion. We have the previous presenter, Ms. Masho Kaknelice from MEPA, at the forefront of shaping Georgia climate policy framework. We have, welcome, Masho. We have Mr. Omar Tereteli from MEOSD, driving the critical work on energy efficiency and renewables. We also have Ms. Anna Sikaroditse from Greenstream Consulting, bringing essential expertise in energy modeling and policy analysis. And last but not least, Mr. Kaka Mdivani from Ray Caucasus, ensuring the crucial voice of civil society and regional cooperation is heard. So let's begin the panel. Each panelist, just as a procedure, should aim for approximately 4 minutes for the response to its questions. And I'll try to keep an eye on the clock there to make sure we can wrap up nicely also the discussion and on these aspects. I'll turn now for the first round on the foundational alignment and challenges. Masho, let's start with you around the bedrock of credibility. We heard today the ETA identified past inconsistency between greenhouse gas emission pathway in different plants. Looking ahead, how specifically will aligning the NDC 3.0 target squared with the NDCP pathway to improve Georgia's ability to track progress toward 2030, ensuring also that the different ministries are pulling in the same directions and strengthen the already strong international standing of Georgia climate commitments under the Paris Agreement?
Okay, thank you for the question. Under its updated draft of the NDC, as I mentioned, we have pledged to unconditionally reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 47% below 1990 levels, and the domestic total greenhouse gas emissions by 2030. The draft NDC, as I mentioned, covers the key sectors, including energy generation, transmission, building, transport, industry, waste, agriculture, and land use change, and forestry, a sector that was not covered in the previous NDC. The NDC sets more ambitious targets consistent with the NECP emission reduction target. So I want to highlight that the updated NDC will follow up with the updated climate change strategy and action plan. And this action plan will define particular actions and projects in each sector to achieve these set targets, ambitious targets that we mentioned. And therefore, the mainstream of the NDC implementation process across the implementation institutions, ensuring that coherence across ministries and other relevant implementation institutions, including the private sector. So with this engagement and the action plan, which we will renew after the submission of the NDC, will help us reach our goals and our commitments.
Thank you, Masho. That clarity on monitoring and credibility is essential. Omar, turning to you, achieving this alignment often face practical hurdles. From your perspective, managing the NECP day to day, what would you pinpoint as the main challenge in ensuring it's aligned effectively, not just with the NDC, but also with other national strategy and development goals?
Yeah, very interesting question. Thank you. I greet you all. Thank you, Simon, for the introduction. Just before we get started, by the way, I want to thank you. Thank you to IRENA for years of cooperation as well, already in providing energy transition assessment of Georgia. It's really a very productive document. By the way, I was a little bit surprised not to be mentioned within the acknowledgement part of the report together with the rest of my colleagues. But anyway, so it's really one of the outstanding reports covering energy transition recommendations, which could be guidance for us while developing the renewable energy sources of the country. Now revert back to your question, Simon, very interesting question, that what are the main challenges? So as you are aware, the NECP and National Energy and Climate Plan and other documents such as long-term low-emission development strategy, which was also mentioned within the presentation of my colleague from Ministry of Environmental Protection and Agriculture, Ms. Masho, and the 2030 climate strategy are really oriented on the development of the country, and as such, it's crucial to ensure the alignment of the policies and targets. Over the past several years, we have gained significant experience in tackling this issue. However, some challenges still remain, and we should also mention these challenges. When developing policy documents, we coordinate externally with MEPA, very extensively with MEPA, and try to take their input and objectives into consideration. The primary challenge which we are mostly facing are time constraints, as more in-depth coordination becomes more difficult. In addition, it's noteworthy to mention that we are preparing many other action plans and strategies like, for instance, green growth strategy, just transition plan, long-term renovation strategy of buildings, and also green hydrogen strategy, which was mentioned by the Executive Director of GREDA, Ms. Maya Melikidze. And all of those listed strategies and action plans really serve and aim to decarbonizing goals. Within that in mind, it's of utmost significance and importance for all of us in government to have common understanding and measures to achieve the national targets we have by 2030. And Ms. Masho mentioned the target we have in terms of the reduction of the GHG and also renewable energy consumption target we have by 2030 and energy efficiency target. So if we will not be in correlance, so it won't work effectively and we won't have consolidated position and outcomes. On the other hand, we are very happy to note that while elaborating of NECP, the document has undergone several stages of monitoring, starting from scoping, continuing with strategical environmental assessment, which defined that the selected scenario of the document was viable to follow. In this previous week, for instance, I was participating at a permanent high-level group meeting at Energy Community in Vienna, where we discussed several topics of reforms, including the monitoring process of NECP. And as per the verbal assessment of the EU Commissioner, we are really far ahead in compare with some other contracting parties representing the contracting parties of the energy community. And however, this should not create some comfort zone for us to relieve. Still, the identification of relevant challenges could be essential for all of us, including MEPA, including the rest of the parties, counterparts who are involving while the monitoring process of NECP. And as Margarita, as the head of department mentioned, we are really closely cooperating with all remaining donor organizations to move forward to identify the relevant challenges, and very closely and very tightly we are cooperating with MEPA and other institutions to identify those challenges and then think how to solve those challenges. So I'll stop here. I think I have a long answer, and so I'll stop here. I won't waste much of your time, and yeah, back to you, Simon. Thank you.
Thank you, Omar. I mean, it was very insightful, and indeed, those practicalities you mentioned, conflicting cycles, data issue, and capacity are indeed significant. And now, those often stem for or are often exacerbated by technical inconsistencies. Based on your modeling work and deep dive into Georgia climate plans, what are the top 1 or 2 critical short-term harmonization challenges? Maybe differing baseline assumptions or inconsistent sectoral targets that Georgia must prioritize fixing now for the coherent NDC implementation. And specifically, Anna, on those inconsistent baseline that the ETA highlighted, how those undermine the overall policy coherence, perhaps also increasing the perceived investment risks and can hinder the finance mobilization. In a nutshell, what practical steps can harmonize key assumptions across institutions needs to be formulated there?
Yeah, thank you very much. Everybody hears me, I hope.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I just want to share my experience because I have been working on the modeling behind the previous NDC, NECP. I have not been involved directly in LT-LEDs, but I know the model that they have been using at that time, and I'm now main energy sector expert in the current NDC. When we are talking about the inconsistencies between these documents, it's very important to well understand the timeline because the work on these documents have been performed in different times. And especially we have to consider the effect of COVID, which affected main parameters that are used for the projections, for example, GDP growth of the country. And therefore, I don't think that what we are looking for here is to have like a consistent baselines or consistent assumptions. On the contrary, I think what is important that we constantly update those assumptions and we constantly use the best available information that we have now. And this concerns not only like baseline assumptions, but also data, because Georgia is a developing country. A lot of data is not available. Maybe some data that was not available when we prepared the first version of NDC is available now, and we can make a better decision. So what I want to say that these inconsistencies does not necessarily mean that there is something wrong or this affects somehow the decisions or the policy decisions that have been made. On the contrary, I think they don't in our specific situation. There are much more important aspects in this old document that do affect the pathways that we have to take at the current situation. So currently what I want to talk about is the current update of NDC and what has been impacted. I noticed, for example, your comment on why the renewable energy target or energy efficiency target was not included in NDC, because NDC was prepared before NECP, the previous one. That's the reason, obvious. But in the current version also, it will not be included. And we had a discussion on that. It can be expanded and we can have more discussions, but there are two main reasons for that. The first reason is the policy implementation progress. So as I understood from your assessment, you just looked at the at the targets. You did not really assess the progress of what has been done until now. So if you had looked at the progress of our way towards renewable target, our energy efficiency target, at the moment, we are not progressing towards them. So there is a fair chances that there will be significant challenges unless new policy is rapidly introduced in coming 5 years, that we will have problems meeting those targets. That's one of the issues. And also there was like recent review of the climate action plan for the past years that also showed that most of the actions and most of the targets there have not been met. So when we are deciding what we are doing now, it's very important to update all the data, update all the assumptions, and also learn from what has happened. Many actions and NECP have been postponed, so they are starting later on or have been changed during the consultation processes. So there are challenges that have to be tackled. I don't say that they cannot be resolved. They obviously, hopefully, will be resolved, but it requires very quick action in the future. And also, if we look at the data and update data, we can see that there are several key new challenges arising, so which were not considered in NECP, for example, because they were not present at that time. But now they are present and they have to be taken on. That is why the update of NECP will be able to show whether or not these targets are attainable, what additional measures have to be taken in, when these measures have to be taken in, and then their assessment should be done. And this should not copy what was done before. No, it should be completely new, updated, with better analysis, with better data, and the way forward. So my thinking is that I see much more challenges in the implementation, and I think it's not like more coordination between MOSD or MEPA, rather than assigning for each mitigation action. You have to assign responsible person, a responsible entity, whether it's a department or municipality, like George Abulashvili was saying also, that it's not empowering municipality that he was said. On the contrary, he was saying giving the job to municipality, telling them that you have to implement this until now, monitor this. So like distributing the plans in the implementing this, putting those actions in their job descriptions, making sure that all the actions are implementing in time, providing them with the finances to do that, etc. I think what is really challenging for Georgia.
Thank you very much, Anna. I think also we can continue on these aspects related also on the, let's say, post-implementation and MRV discussion in the further round of questions. So those are excellent points, Anna, and the direct link between technical consistencies and investor confidence is key. Harmonizing those core assumptions is fundamental. Kaka, policy effectiveness also depends on public acceptance and input. In your opinion, what role do public consultation processes currently play in influencing Georgia climate targets? Sorry for that. Just a second. I'm going to repeat. I'm sorry for that. Kaka, the question was, what role do public consultation processes play in influencing Georgia climate target and priorities? And looking forward, what specific practical mechanism should the ministry adopt within the NDC 3.0 and NECP update to guarantee the stakeholder inputs that directly shapes the final targets and plans there? Thank you.
Thank you, Simon, a lot. Thanks, organizers, for giving us chance to share our observation through the process. and a very sincere gratitude for the sharing the report, which has really nice indications in terms of the recommendations that has some insights that can be used by the civil society in order to advocate some areas that needs to be strengthened in nearest future. And thanks for that. With regards to your question, the process that we have been offered during the NDC preparation was based on the NDC partnership guidelines, and it was explained in a way that all segment of societies who are interested in the process can be engaged in a process. For that, as Ms. Khakhnalidze presented, there was several groups organized, and within the groups, different representatives of different institutions and organizations were presented and advocated their own interests. So observing with this, it shows that we need to increase the climate voice there because the process is really, really intensive in terms of there are many different interests that needs to be taken into account, and we have to balance somehow. With this, finding the balance, we need a more strong voice with regards to the climate change, especially when we're talking about the emission reduction and keeping the pathway that is related to the carbon neutrality described in the LTLETs. So public engagement with this, I guess, needs to be also strengthened during the implementation phase. And many representatives and esteemed colleagues has already mentioned the importance of the implementation part. As the Ministry of Environmental Protection and Agriculture offers us, NDC has sort of the infrastructure that delivers to the implementation, which includes the climate strategy and its action plan that needs to be renewed every 3 or 2 years. So with this modality, it means for us as a civil society representatives to have everything what is critical be presented in an NDC. You know that our NDC consists with the paras. So within these paragraphs, it's important to be all important aspects that we want to translate in the strategy and finally into the action plans needs to be there. If it's not there, then it would very, very hard to make this incorporated in a strategy or in action plan. So this is a critical one. So we all are waiting for the public hearing for that, 25th of April, as Ms. Khakhnalidze has already announced. And during the implementation process, our engagement would be very very important, and we hope that this kind of mechanism also will be found from the joint consultations. Let's see how the process will continue in this regard. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And yeah, I think strengthening those feedback loop is essential. And thank you for highlighting also those aspects. Let's move now to integrating solutions and looking specifically at governance, integration, and monitoring. Masho, the NECP sets ambitious national targets for renewable and energy efficiency. How can these specific targets be effectively embedded within the updated NDC 3.0 framework itself, ensuring alignment? And how does doing so amplify the policy signal needed to drive real investment in Georgia for the decarbonization of the power, heating, and transport subsectors?
Okay, thanks for the question. So as although the updated NDC does not really set the particular renewable energy and energy efficient targets, as Anna Sikharudze already mentioned, Georgia intends to accelerate this effort towards net zero emission energy system in our new NDC. So it also welcomes the global call for tripling renewable energy capacity by 2030 to accelerate the zero low emission technology. So we have the target for the energy generation and transmission sector. It's 15% compared to the without measure scenario, and it recognizes the relatively high share of renewable energy in its electricity generation and transport sectors. So this, as we already mentioned, will be incorporated into our strategies and action plans. And yeah, I think I pretty much answered your question.
Simon, maybe you are muted.
Sorry for that. Yes. Thank you very much and for your remarks. And I think those, I will say, the message around the target, I think, provide this certainty that was discussed in providing investor confidence. Omar, the ETA, and I understand amendment will be made to acknowledge the role of your team and colleagues, pointed to coordination challenges and suggested institutional improvements, like a permanent planning team or implementation body. What is your assessment of this specific governance recommendation? Are concrete steps being considered now to strengthen how ministry can collaborate for the effective, coordinated implementation of the aligned NDC 3.0 and NSCP?
Yeah. Thank you, Simon. So in response to this question, so this cross-ministerial coordination, as you started your question, by the way, is really essential for the implementation of new policies here, not only for the Ministry of Economy and Sustainable Development, but the rest of the ministries as well, line ministers who are involved while creating new policies. And so establishing a new body is one of the key challenges we are facing also in this direction. And implementation has been subject to discussion and much deliberation in the past. So we know this. We have cooperated closely with UNIS last year on defining a potential structure for an implementing body for renewable energy and energy efficiency initiatives. However, it is yet to be implemented. We do not have this type of body here, implementing body. So in terms of the renewable energy, yes, we have. For instance, Georgian Energy Development Fund, by the way, who is oriented mostly in terms of the development of renewable energy projects here in Georgia. But when it comes to the energy efficiency, so here is the challenge. It was a comprehensive study, these units which was provided by UNIS, and it identified really key directions for the implementation of some renewable energy and energy efficiency legislation. And as you are very well aware, we have significant progress in the primary legislation adoption as well. And next very important step is practical implementation of these policies, and the implementation body will play an important role in this direction. You know that we are policymakers, we are drafting and we are adopting so many laws and bylaws. However, when it comes to the implementation, we need the other different practical implementation body. And despite the fact that in Georgia, so we have several ministries here and some governmental agencies who are providing who are providing some activities in terms of the strengthening of the renewable energy and energy efficiency measures, still we do not have one entity fully dedicated to the implementation of the energy efficiency reforms or measures. And when we are asked what the specific steps are being considered to strengthen institutional governance for the effective coordinated implementation of NDCP, the brief answer is the implementation body or agency or fund, whatever, but something effective in terms of the implementation should be created here. Together with private sector, we need to have an implementation body because representative of, and my colleagues here mentioned that it's the private sector, by the way, who is implementing the projects here in Georgia. And definitely, absolutely, there is no any other alternative option. It's the private sector who is providing some more activities and implementation. However, still we need some governmental entity, some structure who will elaborate more and who will start carrying out the reforms which are drafting and adopted by the policymaker itself. So I think that's one of the main challenges here. However, we hope that this will be solved in the nearest future, as we're sharing some experiences, for instance, of energy community or the other countries worldwide. They have special funds or agencies who are providing the implementation part. And so in this direction also, I hope that in the coming future, we will have the same results. And I'll stop here. Thank you.
Thank you, Omar. Strengthening that institutional machinery is clearly on the agenda from your remark. Anna, back to you, and you hinted that in your first remarks. Robust implementation demand robust monitoring. Integrating the MRV across complex overlapping plans is a global challenge many countries face. Drawing on international best practices, what are the specific institutional mechanisms, data sharing, shared platform, joint technical body that Georgia can prioritize establishing to ensure, a unified, transparent, and efficient MRV frameworks that track progress against both the NDC 3.0 and NECP goal effectively?
Thank you for the question. I can only answer from the modeler's perspective here, but for us, it's also very important to have a very robust monitoring system to improve the data that we are using for future projections as well, and the policy analysis. I think one of the important things that has to be done is understanding the key data gaps that we have, not only for like specific policies or measures, particular policies or measures, but at the national level. There are some sectors in Georgia that do not have information available that would make the assessment of their energy efficiency or mitigation potential possible. And those are the sectors that cover a lot of territory, a lot of consumers, and therefore it's very important that there is a centralized agency that does the constant monitoring of information. These are basically most important to the building sector, for example, in Georgia, as well as transport sector. And I think one of the things that I was mentioning also in my previous speech was that, you know, the task has to be assigned, and some of this task will be assigned to the Geostat, to Georgia Statistics Office, to collect some of the information that is required and currently not existing. They have improved a lot of data. We have energy balances, which is so good, but there are still key indicators, for example, the building areas that are constantly inhabited, or commercial space areas that we need, or like freight turnover that is needed to make a proper projections for the future. Otherwise, you always will have like discrepancies with different experts or different policy, because you need to assess different policies. For example, for different purposes, you get like different assumptions because there is no unified, unique source for this data. So that's kind of, that's like one of the main issues probably that needs to be forward. But on the other hand, as I said, this is also combined with the implementation because each of the action has to be, I think, assigned to the responsible body who will then report on the implementation. So we kind of need self-assessment and self-compliance structure in Georgia that would monitor itself, its own actions in its plans. And believe me, once we have this monitoring and there is an understanding of what is happening and what is not happening, then the coordination of the future policy will also become stronger and better when we have all, you know, this kind of setup available. So like self-compliance, self-monitoring, not relying on the external consultants all the time to identify what projects or what actions are being implemented or what are not implemented, I think is important. And also understanding the gaps and barriers why certain actions are not implementing and what support they need for the future to start is also another. So I think first, like data collection on like national level, Geostat, and then for each action responsible, whether it's some department in any of those ministries, or whether it's like municipality or somebody else, and then their annual reporting with the indicators on each of the policies would help to assess the impacts of the policies as well as plan for the future. So I think that is what is needed currently to facilitate implementation of all the plans that we have, but no.
Thank you, Anna. Those are very practical mechanisms. Kaka, the same question on MRV, but from the perspective of those outside government who actually need to trust and use the system. So from your perspective, what does an efficient MRV framework looks like from civil society point of view? And what specific elements are non-negotiable to ensure accountability, we mentioned that before, and public confidence in the reported progress?
Thanks, Simon, for that question. Indeed, this is one of the crucial part to build the trust among the different civil society representatives and the government. The instrument that was elaborated under the UNFCCC, then MPGs, as we call it, to follow the NDC implementation process, gives all of this characteristics in it. So your country provides the very transparent, accurate, and complete information based on the guidelines that would be sufficient for everybody to understand how NDC tracking is done, and is it transparent? Is it what is the progress, and can we rely on this figure or not? So what we currently are holding, the government offers us the governmental decree 629, which is the crucial for the NDC implementation in Georgia, and as a sort of the backbone for the whole process. And within this decision, we see every year there is a report released how the climate action plan, which is the core of the NDC implementation, is implemented. So what is the progress under this? That what we see that. Within the work of the Regional Environmental Center of the Caucasus, we have analyzed the civil society interests in this regard, and what we know currently and what we want to develop is to give the opportunity for everybody who is interested in climate topic to see where the country stands in right now. For this, there are several interesting international experiences that can be taken inside the country, but this also needs to be discussed. But the most important and what is critical demand from our society is that to see what commitments are taken under the NDC, what is the progress on it. There is a possibility, and everybody knows that it can't be everything to be implemented 100%, but what we already see from the stakeholders is that nobody wants to see a sort of the wishing list in an NDC that is kept there and never be implemented. So we need to create the environment where we see the progress, very transparent manner, including the barriers, what was the problem that was hindered, not implemented, and work together to overcome it. So this is the demand from the civil society, and that needs to be addressed. For this, there are several tools already offered, even within the country, but this needs to be aligned and this needs to be upgraded. That what we have heard already from the stakeholder side.
Thank you very much. I think those emphasis, accessibility and verification are critical, Kaka. Masho, let's zoom now on priorities for supports. The ETA offers several recommendations, focusing specifically on consolidated planning or resolving inconsistency between climate documents, which areas does MEPA identify as the highest priority, where targeted support from IRENA or other international partner could make the most significant difference in facilitating the very important NDC implementation?
Thank you. While all the ETA recommendations are valuable to us, MRV development and investment planning are MEPA's current priorities, priority areas for potential international support to facilitate the implementation of NDC 3. As I mentioned, as already mentioned by Kahainana, MRV system development is very important, and we have to ensure the alignment and accountability. So MEPA would really greatly benefit from this technical support to designing the streamlined MRV framework that will integrate sectoral data and it will also be aligned to the UNFCCC reporting requirements. So this will be very helpful. And the second recommendation which is very crucial for us is the investment planning and resource mobilization. We see the strong value in technical and financial support in this investment needs assessment for Georgia, because we have to have the financing strategies and the investment plan for our strategy and action plan. And it will be very helpful if we could attract, this would help us to identify and attract private and international climate finance.
Sorry, I can't hear.
Yes, the same, Masho. We lost
okay.
your sound for just now. No, not yet. We cannot hear you. Okay. Not yet. Maybe Masho, while you are checking the sounds, and I will come back to you, of course, I can quickly go to Omar, looking toward the horizon, aligning the medium-term NECP, NDC targets with the 2050 neutrality goal in the LTLEDs is crucial. How can you ensure that current policy design, infrastructure planning, like the grids, TYNDP, and investments framework, support scheme, public finance initiative actively enable the long-term decarbonization pathway of the LTLEDs, rather than creating perhaps locked-in and stranded assets that make the 2050 goal harder to reach?
Yeah, thank you, Simon. So I will start from this NECP and NDC traditionally. So as you are already aware, we are dedicated to ensuring that the medium level targets are consistent with LTLEDs, long-term low emission development strategy, and its investment frameworks. Support mechanisms and other documents such as NECP and 10-year network development plan also are reflected in LTLEDs and built upon them as well. Even so, we try to facilitate the inclusion of additional measures and initiatives as necessary, and the plans are open to revisions and changes based on exchange circumstances. Additionally, as you are aware, in 2029, we should adopt second NECP, National Energy and Climate Plan. And right now, for instance, my colleagues, we and energy community also is involved within the monitoring process of the NECP. We are exchanging some information, and also it's a huge contribution is coming from Ministry of Environmental Protection Agriculture. And I should mention this because together with us, it's MEPA colleagues who are providing very very detailed information within the NECP. So, and I'm sure by 2050, those goals and objectives which we should be fulfilled will be relevant, I think, by 2030, and it will be more or less achievable. However, when we speak about the other targets which we have, and so even Anna Sikharulidze and the other colleagues and experts also touched this issue. So despite the fact that we have very proper modeling and we have very proper NECP with lots of measures and etc., still when it comes to the when we speak about the achievability of those targets. So here is one of the main challenges we are facing, because as I already said, so it's not only up to us, only up to the Ministry of Economy, but also the rest of the line ministries, governmental agencies. So the country should work jointly to achieve those targets. So in addition, and I will end by this comment, it goes without saying that we will continue our close cooperation and coordination with the colleagues from Ministry of Environmental Protection and Agriculture in order to be aligned with developing or updating our policy documents, because there was a time when our NECP was saying different scenario, different targets, and for instance, NDC was providing quite different information. However, this is eradicated right now. So we have much more preferable and favorable condition, because this new NDC 3.0 is in line with the current version of NECP. And as you are aware, we and Ministry of Environmental Protection are working together to upgrade NECP and finalize it by 2029, when it will be delivered to the Energy Community Secretariat, by the way. There are some countries in energy community which have not even adopted NECP yet. And so we hope that they will also take the same measure to be in line with these requirements which are coming from the international organizations. I'll stop here. Thank you.
Thank you, Omar, for that extremely important and concrete, I would say, measures that you outline there. I'd like to come back quickly to Masho if she had the sounds back.
Yes,
Masho,
can you
we
hear
lost
me?
you at the yes, perfect. We lost you toward the end.
The
We're
investment
talking
planning,
about,
I think so.
yes,
Yeah.
around prioritization. Thank you.
Okay.
Back to you.
So as finally we see the strong and value in the technical and financial support in the development of the investment plan and the resource mobilization. This will be very useful for us, especially in relations to scaling renewable energy and energy efficient measures. And this would also support us identify and attract private and international climate finances in line with the NECP and the NDC objectives that we will have in the action plan of our updated action plan, which will follow after the submission of the NDC 3.
Thank you, Masho, for those additional elements there. I'd like to turn to Kakav again for civil society perspective. And obviously, from this perspective, effectively monitoring the progress both on the medium and long terms are essential to ensure accountability. What are the specific, in your opinion, mechanism for transparency and participation that needs to be established or perhaps strengthened by Georgian institutions, thinking about access to project implementation data, funding detail, emission tracking, or formal roles in, for example, review processes?
Currently, what we see, Simon, in the reports, mostly we see the factual data. That is important, and this is a vital information for all of us in order to make our assessments. Beyond this, what is also important, we need the analysis. We need the analysis in terms of see the discussion on what is hindered. Because what I would like to take your account take on your account is this: this 5 years is the most critical one. As the Ministry of Environmental Protection and Agriculture said, new NDC will try to follow the climate neutrality process, so the long-term strategy. So if it goes like that, it means that we have to expect peaking of our emissions very soon, within this 10 years, what we have. So if it's like that, it means that the transformative changes have to start in individual sectors of GHG emissions. So if we want to do this decoupling process, this is the time where we have to work right now on this together. So if we want to work on this together and achieve a tangible result by end of the implementation period of NDC, we need to have a clear analysis. What was the challenges at the implementation level? So just presenting the information that 14 activities has been successfully implemented and 7 was hindered, that's not enough. This is a factual information. This is a transparent information, but it's not enough. We need to know what is the causes of these delays. Can we work together to overcome these delays? Can we work together to maneuver there and to strengthen the certain group of civil societies on this direction? And on this behalf, I would like to thank IRENA for the report, and particularly this part where we have the civil society and engagement in an energy poverty perspective that was described in the recommendations. And this is a critical one. This is a critical one in terms of Georgia and in terms of our municipalities. It's so obvious. We have worked on the municipalities and development sustainable energy and climate action plans, and it was so obvious that energy poverty is there. So what we are gonna to do with this cluster of community, how we are going to bring them in the process and give them the role within this process to be fully engaged. So this is elements that we need to work during the implementation phase. And it's also covers the tracking if there conditions improved during this process. So are we moving towards to achieve the targets, or we are staying far behind this? So next 5 years for this a very, very critical one where we need to have a more studies and analysis in this regard to join our forces to overcome the barriers that we have currently ahead. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for your elements, and I think those calls for deep transparency and more formal participation are clear here. For the last round of questions, I'd like to turn to both Masho and Omar with specific questions around external levers and foundational actions. Try to be brief as we need to close very soon the panel discussions. Masho, turning outward again, which specific commitment within the UAE consensus or the energy community framework provide, in your opinion, the most direct technical or policy leverage for Georgia to enhance ambition in its NDC 3.0 and ensure its alignment with the NACP? How can those external drivers be used most effectively?
Okay. Thank you once again for the question. As I already mentioned, the NDC3 is designed to welcome and meet the GST, the global stocktake results, and contribute to the global approaches. By 2030, we intend to mitigate the greenhouse gas emissions from the energy generation and transmission sector by 15% compared to the situation without measures scenario, and recognize the need for the relatively high share of renewable energy in its electricity generation. Georgia aims to enhance the energy efficient practices in as well in the building sector as well, and boost the energy efficiency in the new constructions. And we also plan to investigate opportunities for the efficient energy use to encourage low emission development in the industrial sector as well. Yeah, additionally, what I can add is that we recognize that the climate change accelerates. It leads to the inevitable losses and damages, and highlighting the necessity of this urgent and collaborative actions is very mandatory from our side.
Thank you very much, Masho, for those elements. Strategically using those external framework is indeed smart policy. Omar, we end where we perhaps should have started, the foundational issue of consistency, as highlighted in the ETA report. Recognizing this inconsistency, what concrete actionable steps is your ministry undertaking, perhaps via the proposed planning team or existing structure, to establish and enforce common sectoral definition, unified data protocol, and agreed baseline assumption across the NECP, NDC 3.0, and LTLs? How do we move from acknowledging the problem to actually fixing it?
Yeah, absolutely. Simon, we are ending where we started. By the way, this question is very actual question, not only for the Minister of Economy and Sustainable Development, but also for the Minister of Environmental Protection and Agriculture. As I have noted previously, we have accumulated considerable experience with harmonizing assumptions and objectives across different policy documents. And we frequently communicate with the representatives of other ministries, and especially this MEPA, which I have already mentioned several times. And we have frequently communicated with them to ensure that a common framework was followed. A notable example of this was NDC, and I have already spoken about this issue, that NDC, so right now NDC 3.0 is in correlance with the National Energy and Climate Plan, and this National Energy and Climate Plan is the document on which we and MEPA are working jointly together. I think that even in 2029, we will have much more refined document than we have right now, because these measures which we set within the NECP, and you know that it was adopted in 2024, the last year. Still, the document needs to be upgraded, needs to update it, and Energy Community Secretary is providing really nice guidance in this direction. So Ms. Khakhnelidze touched, by the way, this energy efficiency component as well, and I will add a few words in this direction, that one of the main component of NECP, including decarbonizing and energy security and etc., is energy efficiency. And even in this regard, we are launching some more reforms based on the new directives and regulations of the Energy Community Secretariat. And one of the distinguished reforms we have launched so far was this minimum energy performance requirements for buildings. It means that all buildings started from 2023 should be the subject of minimum energy performance requirements. And so we are very successfully implementing this reform, and think that these type of approaches to the other measures also which are mentioned in NECP could help us to achieve our targets which we have by 2030, including the consumption of the share of the consumption of the renewable energy. So yeah, it is so big topic that we can speak about it until the morning of tomorrow, and so I'll stop here. And I'll give floor to you, as we know that we are running out of time, and so it's a time to wrap up maybe. Yeah, thank you, Simon. Back to you. Yeah.
Thank you, Omar. Thank you, Masho. Thank you, Kaka, and thank you, Anna, also for your intervention and also navigating this complex territory with, I think, such clarity and focus. I've took some notes on your remarks, and I'd like to summarize key takeaways before closing the panel. I think the key takeaways, the first one is harmonization is urgent the need to fix inconsistencies in baseline definitions and assumptions were highlighted in the panel and others, and it's critical for credible planning and attracting finance. Omar just outlined concrete steps that are needed now. The second point was around effective interministerial coordination through strengthened or new structure that are essential to translate a line plan into coordinated action. The third point tackled was a unified, accessible, and verifiable MRV system, incorporating best practices, also structured by Anna, and meeting civil society needs for transparency outlined by Kaka there. And this is non-negotiable today for tracking progress and ensuring the accountability of such plans. Fourth, embedding specific NACP target within the NDC provide the certainty to unlock investment in renewables and also energy efficiency. And this can only happen if we ensure public and civil society inputs that can shape policy through the mechanism that Kaka mentioned, building ownerships and strengthening outcomes, joint outcomes there. We also looked at the long-term vision alignments, actively designing current policies and infrastructure plans to be compatible with the 2050 neutrality goal, avoid costly locked-in. And last but not least, strategically using commitments such as the UA consensus and the energy community framework noted by Macho can bolster domestic ambition and support alignment effort there. This journey, as a summary, requires political will based on technical and credible analysis and, at the end, collaborative efforts. The energy transition assessment is a tool to provide guidance, and the commitment showed here today is really encouraging. So I'll take again the panel for their insights and this dialogue there, and I'll hand over back to Varvara for the rest of the event. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Simon, and big thanks goes to each and every panelist. It was right on time. Thank you for being also very rich in discussing the highlights of importance of the climate component in the energy transition. It is very much appreciated. Let me also just briefly announce before we go to closing remarks that we will kindly share the survey of today's event with all of you once the meeting is closed. And we would really appreciate your feedback on today's event and evaluation. So now, without losing too much time, we will move into closing sessions. It's time to invite kindly Miss Margalita Rabice for her closing remarks. Miss Margalita, please, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Dear Varvara, thank you so much. Firstly, I would like to thank to IRENA's team and for excellent cooperation. As you are aware, and our main policy is the renewable energy and renewable energy utilization, because reason is very simple. First reason is into implementation and more practical projects, because to achieve our renewable energy very ambitious target. Second, it's very important, it is our energy security, because in the last 5 years we heard that the consumption of the electricity is so high. Of course, we have a different reason, but as we guess, the renewable energy, it is in one of very priority directions, and because it is in security, it is in clean and green energy, and so on and so on. As regards to this initiatives, this project, it's very important, important for the governments and the special Minister of Economy and Sustainable Development, because as we see all here in the identified and the relevant challenges and relevant solutions in this field, it's very important for us. Also, our key stakeholders are in the line ministries, also it's very nice, and here are representatives from the line ministries and the representatives from them, also in the NGOs and the private sector and developers and so on. It's very important also for us, because where we are talking about and support scheme mechanisms and incentive mechanisms in the renewable energy and the relevant activities. It's really, really important, of course, and the ministries and governments and decide, and we are interested in what is in position from them, including in private sector and the developers and so on. We are here and the relevant and the participants are here. It's very important for us. Also, as you are aware, there were Varvara and Petya and others, and the previous time also when they had that communication and with the difference and the entities, and we conclude an information from that. It's very important for us because first, it's very important to identify and do what is and challenges in this field. A second, it's in relevant solutions. That's why, and all the information are here. I think, and the ministry thinks that, and this report, and the very important, and for the government sector, also for the all stakeholders which involved in this process. Again, I would like to thank for the excellent cooperation and dear participants. And as you are aware, and this report is prepared by the IRENA. This information upload on the IRENA website, but later, and this report and will upload on the ministry's websites. Of course, and later, and we will share information about this and the all participants, and information about and the report, information and the cooperation with IRENA, and also when we believe that this we will continue in cooperation in the renewable energy issues. And I think and the next and cooperation also will be very successful with IRENA. Thank you again, all participants. Thank you, IRENA, for excellent cooperation. I will stop here in Varvara and yes, yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Margarita. Once again, our gratitude to all the responsiveness of the ministry and each and every interested party who joined and collaborated together to this endeavor, common endeavor. Thank you so much once again. And allow me now to welcome my colleague, Mr. Binu Partan, who is the Deputy Director of the Country Engagement and Partnerships in IRENA, to give us his closing remark. Binu, please, you have the floor. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Barbara, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. All good things come to an end, and we've had a very fascinating set of discussions on this very important day where we launched our first energy transition assessment. We're very happy that it's with a country that we have worked very closely, as Margarita mentioned, with Georgia. It's been a fascinating journey. We've expanded our typical readiness framework to include aspects such as energy poverty, transportation, energy efficiency. We also went at the subnational level and the municipal level. We looked at institutions, we looked at geospatial planning, and as we do in the region, we also looked at NDC 3.0, we looked at NEC, PNDC alignment, etc. So this has been a very, very comprehensive effort, and we could not have done this with a constant partnership and valuable support we had from the Ministry of Economy and Sustainable Development of Georgia, particularly colleagues Margarita, Omar, Nicholas, and Annie, who played a very important role in making sure that this particular presentation, the details which were presented, are actually based on facts which are actionable, and we can move forward on this. We've had a fascinating set of discussions, which I find I've learned a lot from these today as well. And this has been made possible by IRENA's team, particularly Petya Icheva and Barbara Alexic, who has been with you today. But there are other colleagues behind this, some of whom you saw today, Simon and Ines, but also there are colleagues like Iman, several others who've been working on this. So there's been a much larger effort, and we are really happy that it's coming to a culmination today. Launching of the report today, which is on our website, we're grateful that it will be soon on the government website. This is just one small step in the right direction. What is more important is to go ahead and implement these recommendations today to accelerate energy transition in Georgia. And this is really where some of the key partners who joined the panel discussions today, who have more resources, more ability, more presence on the ground than IRENA, are important. But IRENA will continue to be part of this journey. We'll work together with Georgian government to help with we being a relatively small organization based in Bonn and Abu Dhabi, we have our limitations, but we will be part of this. We'll try to focus efforts on this, but also very importantly for us as an organization, we'll try to leverage this in other countries, apply the same framework of the energy transition assessment elsewhere, and try to continue our support for accelerating the energy transition. So I'd like to again close this by thanking the government, Margalita and colleagues in particular, but also apart from Barbara and Petya, we had Tiana and Lisa who contributed to this as part of the IRENA team. So they played a very important role in presenting very actionable recommendations that we have today. So thank you all for joining. I understand that today was a very rainy day in Tbilisi, but very different to what we have in Abu Dhabi. So a lot of you made it possible to join this and support us in launching this. The work and the efforts start today, and we'll work together with the government and other stakeholders to take this forward. So thank you all very much for joining us. Let's work together towards energy transition in Georgia. Thank you very much. Back to you, Barbara.
Thank you, Binu. Appreciating your concluding remarks and indeed the high and the continuous presence of all the stakeholders during both workshops we had, but also today is very much appreciated from our side. Now, before we close, I would like just kindly to draw your attention to the survey, which will pop up right after we finish this meeting. We would appreciate if you can take a couple of minutes to fill it in and to provide your kind feedback for this event. Let me also at the very end, from my side, thank to all the participants who stayed throughout the day with us, to all the speakers, all the panelists, and also all the stakeholders and partners in Georgia who contributed and worked in this project in the previous period with us. And yeah, we are very much looking forward to continue this and wish you a nice day forward. Thank you again.
Yeah, thank you. Bye.